FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
From the coldest studio in Odyssey. I'm not talking Rochester. I'm just talking to the country. Welcome into the sports bar. Hey, if look, if this is a real sports bar, people would be saying, turn up the damn heat.
Yeah, this is awesome. We've got winter hats on. I've got a hood on over my headphones.
Yeah, we're back to where we started. Like, really?
27 degrees in here, it feels like.
Yeah, it's, so we might as well just be doing it outside, and that way we'd have kind of an excuse, but we don't. So we welcome you in. Gene Battaglia with Tim Schneider today. If Danger comes back and starts telling these tales of, in Florida, he had the post on his social media, I won't post pictures from Florida. I won't post pictures from Florida. I'm like, okay, yep. Because we all know somebody that, all right, had the wherewithal, had the timing to get the heck out of here. So give him the foresight for seeing that this would be just like a miserable week here in Rochester.
Yeah, this stinks.
Yeah.
I'm over it. This is the worst winter that I can recall in my post-collegiate life.
Yeah, this is like when I was a kid type of winter. Like, it just like is never ending here. Just as long as, all right, when we get to mid-March, that's when I'm really going to be like, okay, that's enough. Like when we get to the college basketball conference tournaments, which to me still means something. That's the time where, okay, I like the days getting longer. That's always the weekend of Selection Sunday where, all right, wait a second. We just had the clock change. I'm like, but maybe you grill out once or twice and you're sitting out. And maybe that's when I want it to kind of break. And once it breaks, it's going to feel awesome. Welcome to the sports bar. Gene Battaglia, Tim Schneider. As we were off on Monday. Why? Because they gave us off. And I'm like, okay, it's a holiday. Great. You don't need an excuse here. Take a day off. But we took the day off. And then yesterday we had Fisher basketball, which you helped out anchoring, Tim. Appreciate that.
It was, sad end of the season for the men, but the women continue on this weekend, so we'll see if they can make a run.
They get Houghton Saturday at 2 o'clock. The women, by the way, Fisher has a new football coach. Ed Raby is his name, takes over for Paul Vosberg, so maybe we'll talk to Coach Raby later in the week here. But that's where we were yesterday, so we're back today, tomorrow, Friday, and I don't see another day off on the horizon. Let's set you up for the show today. First of all, you are always welcome to call us at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We're on the FM at 95.7. We're on the AM at 950. We are free in the Odyssey app. We are on Twitch and YouTube. As far as I know, the YouTube thing is up and streaming. I can tell you that is not Mike Danger as labeled on the YouTube.
Never is. It almost always is, but not with me.
Nope. So
it does appear to be working. I just pulled it up. So
okay,
we're good for now.
Good for now.
See if we'll make it through till 6.
Yes, because that's like when things aren't working, that's when we kind of hear about it. But that's why we appreciate you listening and writing in and everything. You can write to us on X, our handle, The Fan Rochester. But always kind of the disclaimer here. I'm kind of looking at other things. We'll get to those, those posts, those tweets, if you will, during break there. So don't expect the immediate gratification. Best way, if you want that immediate gratification, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Coming up on the show today, coming up at the bottom of the hour, let's talk some college basketball. It's been a minute. It's been a couple weeks since we had our buddy PJ Glasser, your host of Send It In on the BetMGM network. Got an interesting game tonight in the SEC, Alabama and Missouri taking place. We'll ask him about that. We will ask him about tomorrow night's hockey game. Also, PJ's like, hit me up on golf. I'm like, okay, the Mexico Open, which I know nothing about. But you know what? Maybe if the weather is like this, I might want to be putting on something that looks nice and warm. PJ Glasser, your host of Send It In, coming up at the bottom of this hour. Next hour, talk about it's been a minute. We haven't talked to Dennis Bernstein in a long time. He was up in Montreal. He is in Boston. Of course, Dennis Bernstein, the fourth period, also hosts a show on the NHL channel on Sirius XM. He will be joining us today live on the show as, what do you know, hockey taking center stage for various reasons. That is going to be a game that we're all going to be paying attention to tomorrow night. Also, with the NHL trade deadline kind of coming up here, like every year, hey, Dennis, what should the Sabres do? And we just all kind of hang our heads here.
Anything.
Nothing changes here in that regard. Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period, Tim, I always thought, it's going to be cool. The Sabres will play in a postseason game, and because Dennis always goes around, that's when I'll meet Dennis. I've yet to meet Dennis in person.
We're waiting.
Yeah, we're still waiting here. Like when we have the Bills, we had national writers come through and everything. It's been a little different. Dennis, someday I hope to meet Dennis in person. Also, end of the show today, if you're looking for something fun to do this weekend, may I suggest playoff hockey. That's going to be taking place out at the Gene Policini Center. Celebus Brown is the head coach for the RIT women. Tim, this is a team that 4 years ago, so when these current seniors are freshmen, they didn't win a game until senior night. Okay, so winless the whole season. That's how barren the team was. You're playing a bunch of freshmen, or I should say first year. That's how they refer to them at RIT and many other places. First-year players, and 11 of them, to be exact. They go from 2 wins to 4 to 15, and now for the first time ever, they are hosting a playoff game at the Division I level at the Gene Policini Center. And that is going to be coming up Saturday at 3 o'clock. Celeste Brown, who was on the national championship team at D3 and then was one of the founding members of the D1 program as a player, now as the head coach, she will join us at the end of the show. She is also a Sports Bar listener, Tim.
Awesome.
Yes, well, we appreciate people spreading the word like an evangelist. Again, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Now, let me just start off with this will be a sports take, trust me. But I think something in just talk radio in general, just maybe life in general, is you are allowed to change your opinion. You are. I'm not backing down here, Tim. You get different viewpoints. It's not a sign of weakness to change your opinion. Honestly. And where am I going with this? Last time we were on, I don't have any use, for this glorified all-star tournament. And maybe it was because I knew my schedule last week, Tim. I was kind of busy with a lot of I called 4 hockey games at RIT last week. Maybe I knew I was just kind of busy in that regard. But I'm calling the game Saturday with Brayton Wilson, and he's looking at his phone during a commercial break. He's like, get a load of this. Like, what? 3 fights in the first opening 10 seconds? I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that anthem thing didn't go very well up there, right. Did it not? And then the hockey has been great, and now you have hockey taking center stage, and I feel like, boy, I kind of missed the boat on that. But my point is, somebody would say, well, Gene, you're moving the goalposts. No. I can say, hey, you know what? That opinion I had, maybe it was a little off the mark. I didn't expect them. I thought it was going to be and you did too, Tim. You were honestly kind of like, I'm not sure what to expect. It's going to be kind of like this glorified all-star tournament. Yeah. And it hasn't been. This has been real. And if you want, and you can't bet on something like this in New York State, there is right now the plus money not to have a fight in the first minute of the game. In other words, the favorite is there will be a fight first minute of the game between the United States and Canada after what happened up in Montreal last week. So, yeah, it's a little old-time hockey. It's a little the world creeping into our sports. But you know what? I'm all down for tomorrow night.
Yeah, tomorrow night should be awesome. I do think that it's going to be a completely different style of play than what we saw on Saturday. I think that there's going to be the best skill in the world on display from start to finish, and it's going to be a nail-biter, like a Stanley Cup championship, Stanley Cup final playoff game, like Game 7. That's what it feels like it'll become tomorrow. I think we're looking at a low-scoring, gritty, maybe not aggressive in the sense that fights after fights after fights, but I think it'll be a hard-nosed, like the best hockey game that you will probably watch this year.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, and again, I don't, if you want to go in the political direction, fine, 866-4326. But how would you react if somebody just showed up and started booing you? And Dennis will join us in the 4 o'clock hour because he's a reporter. He's got friends all over the globe, right? But he's also a U.S. citizen. If you're sitting there covering the game and it's like the you're not welcome thing, and maybe getting a sense of that. You know who the head coach of this U.S. team is.
Yeah.
It's Torts. It's Torts. It's the guy that we knew in Rochester before anybody in the NHL got on, knew about Torts. It's a guy who's won a cup with Tampa. It's a guy who runs. Tim, I'm saying this, like, honestly, as hot as any coach I've ever met. Torts once ripped my head off. Granted, I asked a question that was a little dumb, but he didn't have any tolerance for it.
He's
But
still that way.
and I probably deserved it. And that's why you have to kind of respect him. His son served. How do you think, and if you care about your coach and that's going on, I'm just wondering if, like, hey, maybe we see that all over again.
You're getting
coming
the shoulder tap on the bench before the
Yeah.
game even starts. All right, you guys know what to do now. Like, to a lesser extent, I believe it was an All-Star game. Chase Utley gets booed, and his response is boo and F you.
Yeah.
But that was to one player in one stadium. This was a whole country.
How could you not take that personal? And again, you may not agree with everything going on, but they're telling you you're not welcome in that regard. Now, what I thought was kind of funny was, and Steve Cornianos and others pointing this out, like, there were some, including Frank Saravelli, like, look, the boos here in Boston for the Canadian. And then people started posting the video like, what, like one or two people?
Right.
That's nothing like it was up in Montreal.
And that said, like, that was in response to stuff happening down here, and people are going to react how they're going to react. Then the very next day at the Amerks game, they booed the Canadian anthem because of the response from Saturday.
So that's what I was going to ask. So you had, and we had somebody Frank write in. I said, hey, let's be above this. So Laval on Saturday for Kids Day. Tim, you were running the board.
They booed the Canadian anthem, and I mean, ironically, Devin Levi's from just outside Laval,
right? Yeah,
and that was the first game that he got pulled. So that might
that
might have an alternative psyche to that too. It's like, what are you booing me for? Like,
correct. So like, think of the fallout, because these guys, like, guess what? This weekend they go back to their team,
right? And some of these guys are teammates with one another.
It's a strange dynamic. Now, I think it's a bigger conversation, and what I'm going to kind of pull from is, it's not related, but somebody, oh my gosh, look, did you see where Spencer Brown was? Yeah, I saw, like, Spencer Brown and who else? Tommy Doyle.
Dalton Kincaid was there. There were 5 or 6
players.
players.
5 or 6. They're playing, Trump, and there was the president. They're taking a picture with the president. Like, oh, can you believe that? And it's interesting to me, without saying what it was, but we got Josh Allen on our show once.
Yes.
When they said 10 minutes, trust me, it was 10 minutes. Okay, let's go. We got to make sure. But he told the story, and this all kind of, stuck with me, is like, for the Bills, and part of the reason the Bills have this success is, well, it's the culture. Well, how the heck do you build culture? It's out of kind of mutual respect. You have guys coming from all these different backgrounds. And what Josh told us, like, how do you deal with that? At Fisher, they have what they call the dinner society. And what is the dinner society? I can only imagine, but you're just kind of holding court, and you're talking about things that are not related to football with guys from different backgrounds and different viewpoints. And, I would love to be kind of a fly on the wall and just hear what some of those different viewpoints are. But should you hate your teammate because they have a different view? No, that's your teammate. That's your guy.
Well, you can hold your own personal opinions and perhaps maybe judge others for not sharing the same ones as you. But at the end of the day, like, you have to build a culture off of camaraderie and closeness. And sure, there's some things that, like, to some people it's a non-starter. Like, absolutely not. I cannot respect you for this opinion. Whatever. But at the end of the day, you still have to work with that person. So you have to put it past just in a working relationship. If you're going to succeed and they're going to succeed, you guys got to work together. So I think we're witnessing this from a national standpoint this week with how Team USA operated. And I hope that it translates into more success tomorrow, because on Monday, the game didn't matter, but it also felt like it didn't matter. And if that carries over into Thursday, where it absolutely does matter, then who knows what that result may entail.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point here, Tim, bringing it back to the Amerks. So we got the Amerks in Cleveland tonight. This is a team that the Amerks took care of just last week. man, if you could just say, hey, let's pretend we're in Cleveland here, guys. It seems like they play better on the road. We'll have Mike Leone, by the way, on the show tomorrow because we weren't here yesterday because of Fisher basketball and Leone and the Amherst. Thank you, Warren, for moving that. So he will join us tomorrow on the one day that they aren't playing the next 3 to 4 days. But I think we have to ask him the point you just brought up, because coming up on Friday, Belleville, Saturday at 5:05, the Marlies. Like you said, Tim, like how many Canadians, I'd have to go through the roster here. Are you booing your own team? I mean, you can't get more American than having the shield across your chest, I would say. But just because they're doing it, I would say it doesn't mean that we need to do it. You know what would be really cool? Just winning the damn game tomorrow night.
Right. Take care of business.
Yeah.
And from the fans' point of it, I mean, you are a paying customer. You're free to behave basically however you damn well please outside of a couple of things that you just simply cannot do. But, yeah, if you want to go, and that's your right. But I would not advise doing not that, because you're affecting the team that you're cheering for effectively by booing a country.
Yeah.
5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys from up north.
The fact that the U.S. GM now has said, oh, it'd be great if the president was at the game tomorrow night. When was the last time we had the president at a hockey game?
I do not have the answer
I don't
to
even
that.
know. Yeah. Like the president never went to the Super Bowl, but man, if he wants, not that you need headlines if you're the president, but that would certainly garner attention unlike we've ever seen for the sport of hockey. That's again tomorrow night from Boston. Can you imagine if you had tickets for that, Tim?
I saw the prices for them, and it's no longer feasible.
No.
They're before fees, it's $1,500 just to get in. So that's probably pushing over too.
Yeah, and going back to the original point I had was like, hey, I'm not moving the goalpost. I think that all All-Star games suck. All right, I used to love baseball, and thankfully baseball's kind of going back, at least with the uniforms. We get to look at that, but really the guys are done by the third period. I didn't think we'd ever get back to a point where you see the starters playing full tilt like this is actually a playoff game, which is exactly what you had.
Yeah, this didn't feel. Last week we were talking about it being an All-Star game and people playing to not get hurt, and what we saw for the first time in a long time was like hockey that we grew up watching. And it was appealing, and it was high-skilled and tenacious. And if this can bleed into the NHL game when they return, you're going to bring in more than just the diehard fan. Like that, what Saturday was a huge selling opportunity for the NHL. This whole tournament was a win.
Yeah, I'm hoping, and you know, I don't want to be like, oh, I hope it's just a good game. But for the sport of hockey, like if it's a blowout one way or another, I guess people might enjoy it U.S. side, but you want to bring in a new audience. If you compare that to, all right, Caitlin Clark against LSU. That was a lot of fun. And will that be able to, you could say, all right, well, they're never going to post a number like that. No, but you know what? They're all going to beat previous numbers from other years when the tournament comes around. We might actually have a little action on it. So, yeah, when the women's tournament comes around, no, Caitlin Clark will not be there. But, yes, I'll be paying attention to where South Carolina is seated and where LSU is seated and whatnot. That'll be fun, no doubt about it. But can the NHL actually take advantage of this? This is your opportunity. I would say for the NHL, it's a rare opportunity. And part of it, too, Tim, is the NBA. I'd swear if I was allowed to on these airways. The NBA effed this up.
Yeah, they did.
Really did. You have this league, whether it's right or wrong, but this is the perception. The perception is that these guys in the NBA don't give it their all. That they're more concerned about their paycheck, that the management doesn't care. And you had an all-star game that was, they tried this new format, and it failed. They thought just by putting Charles Barkley's name on a team that people would tune in, it ended up somehow being worse with all those delays. So being so worse that who actually watched it? I didn't. I
did
watched
not.
the Saturday Night Live thing on Sunday.
I did not watch any of the NBA, any of the festivities even. The only thing that I saw for the NBA All-Star Week was that LeBron dropped out at the last minute. And, like, for someone like me, that's what I'm watching for. Like, I want to see the best play, even if they're just having fun. Like, on the All-Star game day, he's like, I don't feel like it. Oh, okay, well, I guess I don't feel like watching either then.
So maybe finally the light bulb went off that maybe the format they should do is just steal it from the NHL. No, you can't have a Four Nations, but why not the United States versus the world?
Yeah,
That
or
would be
even
like-
even
yeah.
if they just do it by divisions or something instead of whatever. Like they're toying with things. They're reinventing the wheel, but the wheel sucks. Like just go do something that you know will work. Don't try new things because you're trying it in real time and you're failing, and it's pulling people away, not in. And there's got to be somebody making way more money than me to come up with an idea that is just simple. Keep it simple.
Yeah, like if you apply this to other sports, for basketball, yes, try something like when we get to the Olympics next year. Okay, there won't be an NHL All-Star game. We'll watch these guys over in Milan, and okay, it won't be Four Nations. It'll be more than Four Nations. Okay, sign me up. It'll be like, okay, we love that back in 2025. We will watch it next winter. For baseball, when the Summer Olympics, and granted, we got to wait till 2008 on that. Here would be my radical suggestion. Okay, because they want the players in the Olympics, right? And I think they're going to allow it. Shut the sport down. It's not going to happen, Tim, because, well, you have, like, that's your prime gate time, right? But for the betterment of the sport, how great would it be if you just took 2 weeks off, everybody tuned in to watch the best in the world? You don't need an all-star game, so maybe that's a way you can kind of make up for it. Like, I think we'd be all okay if we said, all right, no all-star game, but you know what? There would be a significant loss, I would think, in gate revenue and TV revenue and whatnot. And
You would either need to cut games or schedule doubleheaders, and I don't think the CBA on either side would probably be on board for that because that means less money. But if you're trying to build the sport and build the game and thus create more money, that's your opportunity. That's a way to do it if you're willing to give a little bit to take a whole lot more down the line.
we will talk more hockey later in the show today. Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period will be joining us next hour. Also, Celeste Brown, RIT women's hockey coach, will be stopping by. But coming up next, let's talk to our guy, PJ Glasser, the Glass Man, joining us where we get some winners tonight in college basketball. We'll also get his thoughts on the Four Nations final tomorrow night. That's coming up. Along with Tim Schneider, my name is Gene Battaglia. This is The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. Rochester Sports Update.
Hockey night tonight in the Flower City. Cleveland coming to town. Tonight begins a 3-game in 4-day stretch, all at home here for the Amherst. That's a season high. Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbergs will have your call beginning at 7 right here on the Sports Leader. Steve Tasker adamant today on One Bills Live. The Bills need to get a good pass rusher.
Everybody knows. A guy like Garrett, Crosby, Hendrickson, these other pass rushers that are at Khalil Mack in his day, man, they're game wreckers. So the Bills need one of those guys, and I think pretty badly. Sooner or later, they got to get a guy that can get after it up front, and they haven't gotten one yet.
The NFL salary cap will go up in the range of $22 million per team in the year 2025. Gene Battaglin, the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We should mention there is one game in the NBA tonight. This was not planned, though. This is a makeup game from those Fires here. Charlotte against Los Angeles, that taking place at Crypto Arena. But the NBA getting back to things tomorrow, I think it's just kind of a missed opportunity as we welcome in our good friend, first time in a couple weeks, the great PJ Glasser, who you can hear on the BetMGM network every day. Send it in. We'll tell him about that. PJ, I think the NBA just kind of, I know they have to do this as part of the CBA, but wow, hockey has a real chance here to grow their market share just a little bit, especially tomorrow night. PJ, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Gene. They certainly do. I mean, you just talk about like the disparity between the two All-Star games, right? I mean, the four nations that we got going on in hockey right now is just incredible. And the NBA All-Star game seems like it's getting worse and worse every single year. So Adam Silver in the NBA, they know they have an issue on their hands. Gene, honestly, I'd love to see them do what hockey's done, right? Just go like four nations or six nations in basketball, U.S., Canada, France, maybe like the rest of the world type deal. Just something to spice it up because, I mean, whoever thought of this four nations for hockey deserves a raise. It's spectacular to get like playoff type hockey in February. It's awesome to watch.
Yeah, and I'll admit I was wrong on that, PJ. I'm like, oh, okay, these guys really do care, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. Before we get to some college basketball, also want to ask you about golf. It's not too often we're going to lead with hockey, but that's going to be your lead story tomorrow night. And here's my read on this, PJ. The United States was booed. They were challenged. You know, John Tortorella, his son served. I mean, they kind of took offense to that, and they took it right on the ice emotionally. It was a great game on Saturday. Part of me thinks that, you know what, overall Canada is actually the better team, and now Canada is going to kind of face, I don't know if it's going to be as hostile an environment, but to me, for the United States to beat Canada twice here in this tournament is a big ask. I'm leaning on the side of Canada if I was going to bet. I don't want to bet on Canada, certainly, but how would you read this matchup coming up tomorrow night?
I'm with you, Gene. You know, it almost feels like whoever won Saturday, I would be picking the other team tomorrow, right? So, like, if Canada would have won Saturday, I probably would be on the U.S. tomorrow. But I'm with you. I mean, when they played on Saturday, it was a -110, right? It was a pick 'em. It was a true coin flip. They're playing again tomorrow. It's a -110, which I think makes this matchup so good. You can't get any more evenly matched than these two teams are. I don't think, Gene, we can understate, though, the significance of Cale Makar being back in the lineup for Canada, right? You're talking about arguably the best defenseman in the world to go along with, obviously, all the firepower that they have on offense. As these big games tend to come down to, and this one will be no different, though, it'll be about the goaltending. And the U.S. probably have the best in the world right now in Hellebuck. So Binnington let up a couple soft ones on Saturday. He's going to need to be a lot sharper. But that's the big advantage for the U.S. Even without McAvoy, the fact they have Hellebuck in net. I'm going with Canada, though, just kind of like Eugene. Tough for me to see the U.S. beating this team twice in a 5-day span. I think you also got to take the first period under 1.5 goals, right? Both teams kind of easing into this game. I expect it to be physical like we saw early. Obviously, I don't know if we're going to see 3 fights in the first 10 seconds, but I expect a lot of hitting. I expect it to be physical. And this is a Game 7, right? Winner take all, just kind of one game. So we know how those Game 7s type to go. tend to be lower scoring, and especially early. I'm kind of expecting the same thing tomorrow.
PJ Glass, our guest, who you can hear weekdays on the BetMGM network. Look ahead now. We do have college basketball tonight, and we do have a couple interesting matchups here in the SEC. Let's start out in Missouri, where Alabama, 21-4 on the season, taking on Missouri, 19-6 their record. Two ranked teams, both in the top 20. PJ, what's the play here?
I'm going with Mizzou, Gene. I think a lot of people are going to like Bama to bounce back after that Auburn loss. They're undefeated in SEC play on the road. They've been road warriors this year. They've been awesome away from Tuscaloosa. But Missouri's really solid, Gene. I mean, look, in college basketball this year, everybody's talking about how great the SEC is and how deep this league is. But it doesn't feel like we're giving Missouri enough credit. This team is really good, and they can really shoot the three, and they can really score. So this should be a back-and-forth game. You know I love my live betting, Gene, especially when it comes to Bama. And you get these games where it's a tight spread and a high total, and there's going to be a lot of runs where it's 9-0, 10-1, 13-2 type deal. So the best bet, honestly, is probably just sitting back, watching it live, and getting a nice number with one of these teams, plus 8.5, plus 9.5. But if I had to pick the game, I'm rocking with Mizzou at home. I think they get Bama tonight.
You get the top team in the nation tonight as well. Is PJ, I remember our conversation from last time around, just starting to, all right, pick your brain a little bit here, and we're still over, a month away here, basically, from, getting the tournament going here. But my question was, hey, do you have kind of a team maybe in the mid-major team that you're keeping an eye on? And you were like, no, I see two teams that are head and shoulders above the others, Duke and Auburn. And Auburn in action tonight, 23-2 on the season. But they get an Arkansas team with John Calipari very salty with his team here, his first year as the Razorback head coach. Does his team respond and put up a fight here tonight, PJ?
Gene, if I had to bet the side, I would probably go with Arkansas just because, this is the stuff I live for, right? How many times do we talk about these letdown spots, Gene? And you got the game of the year on Saturday against your in-state rival. It's number 1 versus number 2. College game days there. So much went into that game. Well, now you come back home and you're 16.5-point favorites against Arkansas. The problem is, Gene, with these teams like Arkansas and the SEC, they really struggle to score. And if Auburn's hitting their three-pointers, they have no chance. So I think for me, the better bet is the under. It's gone from 152.5 to 150.5, so it is going down. I'm thinking Auburn's probably going to score about in the mid-80s in this game. Arkansas probably gets in the mid-60s. So I think under is the way to go. The thing that I feel best about in this game is that Arkansas is probably going to struggle to score against this Auburn defense. We'll see kind of how Auburn responds after that game on Saturday, but I like the under, 150.5.
So what am I missing in this Penn State-Nebraska matchup? So maybe part of it, too, is, hey, Penn State fans, because your football team was so fun, you may not have noticed. Basketball's not really all that good. 500 overall, one of the worst teams in the conference right now, 3-12. They're taking on a Nebraska team that, okay, they're not 500 in the conference, not just yet. However, they're kind of bubble-ish here, if you will, PJ, in my opinion. They've won 5 of the last 6, yet it's Penn State giving up 1.5 points. What gives here?
Yeah, Gene, it's one of those stinky lines, isn't it? You mentioned Nebraska's kind of been rolling a little bit. Now, Nebraska, the last couple of years, has been one of these teams that they're really good on their home floor. They struggle away from home. And in this stretch where they've won 5 of 6, they've beaten 2 of the worst Big Ten teams on the road, Minnesota and Northwestern. And that Northwestern game, they were down 20 in the second half and came all the way back. So they really should have lost that game. And Penn State's lost 7 in a row, and yet here they are, Gene, and they're just 1.5-point favorites, right? So this is one of those market indicator games. This is one of those trust Vegas games, like how do they know? I'll take Penn State at home in an ugly game. Nebraska better be careful. I like Penn State tonight.
Yeah. One more for you here in college basketball, and this is one of those matchups. I'm like, okay, I know. Listening to you here, you view the trends, you view everything else. I think I can guess how you might pick this one. So you have Vanderbilt, who they've been respectable, right? They're 17-8 overall, but they've lost 4 of the last 5. No shame in losing to Auburn, right? Like they lost to Tennessee, and tonight they're taking on another ranked opponent in Kentucky. I don't know. If I'm PJ Glasser, I'm taking the points in Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt getting 5.5 here. Did I call that correctly, PJ?
Gene, I'm actually going with Kentucky in this one. But the reason is, Gene, is because Kentucky has some guys that are injured that aren't going to play tonight. So it's one of these spots where I think there's too much of an overcorrection because of the injuries. They're going to be without their top 2 point guards. No Jackson Robinson, no Lamont Butler tonight for Kentucky. Both of those guys missed the Texas game. Both of those guys missed the final 10 minutes of the Tennessee game as well. So Kentucky's gotten used a little bit to playing without these guys. And, gee, I think it would be a problem if you're without your 2 point guards going up against a really good defensive team. Vandy's 79th in Ken Pom, so they're not elite on that side of the floor. I think Kentucky being at home, I just think this is too much of an overcorrection. You know, and sometimes it's tough for these odds makers when starters are out to know just how to move the line. They kind of let the money dictate where the line should go. I feel like this should be closer to 7. I like Kentucky minus 5.5. So normally you'd be right. I would like Vandy, but I like these spots and we get teams that are injured and we can get some value on those teams.
PJ, I don't know if more people are like me on this, but, Danger's in Florida this week. And when we get to this part, we're like, okay, I'm ready now for March Madness. I'm ready for other things on the calendar. I'm ready for baseball. It doesn't matter who's playing. Like, if there's a game in the Grapefruit League or in Arizona, I'll put it on just because, I see the sun and it makes me think of fun things that are coming up. I might do that with the Mexico Open coming up on NBC. You can catch the final rounds there. So I know you cover and you follow everything in golf. It'll be fun if we can make a play or two. So do you have any advice here if we're going to tune into the Mexico Open, PJ?
Well, Gene, it's cold as hell all over the country, right? I mean, I don't know what you guys are dealing with, but we're dealing with 20 degrees, so I can only imagine what it's like up there in Rochester. And, Gene, what better way to kind of combat the cold and get a little toasty? We're going with Alejandro Tosti this week out of Argentina at 90-1. Really all you need to know about this course out in Mexico, this is the 4th year that they're playing this course. And driving distance is the key, Gene. We're not looking for accuracy. We're not looking for good short game. We're not looking for elite ball strikers or iron players. We're looking at guys that can bomb the ball because obviously they're playing in Mexico. There's a little bit of elevation. This is a par 71 that's nearly 7,500 yards. It's a beast of a course. And the guys that usually play well here are the guys that are some of the longest off the tee. So Tosti's one of those guys. Of the players in the field, he's the 4th longest in average driving distance. He's 90-1 this week. I think he is worth a look. I also like Patrick Rogers as well. He's played in this event all 3 years that it's been at this course. He's finished top 10 every time. He's coming off a 3rd-place finish at Torrey Pines this past week. He is 22-1. So, Gene, Patrick Rogers, 22-1. And then let's get a little toasty with Alejandro, 90-1 this week. All right.
Ooh, all right. I'm writing this down, PJ. We'll revisit this coming up next Wednesday, and maybe we'll be talking a little NBA next week as well. Here, PJ, tell everybody about Send It In, where they can catch you on the BetMGM network.
Yeah, Gene, 1 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Mondays through Fridays. You can watch us on the BetMGM network. On Twitch, on YouTube. We live stream the show on X as well. So it's a lot like this. Rapid fire. We go around the different sports. It's interactive. We encourage people to chime in and to send in their questions or their bets that they have about any kind of sport that they want to talk about. So it's fast, it's rapid pace, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, PJ, we were talking earlier about just the kind of the scene here. What it's going to be like in Boston tomorrow night between the U.S. and Canada, and are we going to respect the Canadian anthem? I kind of forget how that goes. How does the Canadian anthem start, PJ?
Oh, Gene! Oh, Canada! Gene, do you think Mark Trumbo will be singing the anthem tomorrow?
It was like a Ryan Leaf interception. I just you knew where that was going. That was just the easiest one, just as of yet. PJ, you're a great sport. I really appreciate it.
Gene, that was spectacular. Have a great rest of your show. I'll talk to you next week.
PJ. PJ Glasser, your host, to Send It In. And look, Oh, that's the Van Pelt bit. Yeah. Yes, it is. And, that on our show kind of started organically, Tim, because it was just one day, and it was actually the Women's World Cup, where PJ was talking about, remember, it was kind of weird. It was in New Zealand, and because of the time change, and the U.S. didn't show up, quite frankly. And, PJ was kind of assessing the United States, what was going on. And he was like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Megan Rapinoe. Like, wait a second. What's her name? Megan Rapinoe, you mean? Now, the funny part is, here in Rochester, I should be the last person saying anything about anybody's accent, because if somebody kind of floated in and like, hey, what are you guys talking about today? You talking about the Buffalo Bills? Wow, you're getting a lot of snow up in Rochester. I look completely self-aware. So, like, if PJ wanted to turn the tables, I'm sure we could kind of do that. You really don't. Well, you have a little bit of it, I think, Tim, but.
Yeah, I don't notice it other than when I say Rochester itself. Like,
Yeah.
everything else I think is pretty even, but the
Even
city itself is definitely something that I do not say that I've got the accent on the city, and that is probably it.
Yeah, because so Danger, he's been here 25 plus years. He still has he still has that good broadcasting voice from the Midwest. Hi, I'm Mike Danger, everybody. It doesn't really affect him as much as me. And when you start off in this business, be like, oh, you want a job, you can't be talking like that. I'm like, well,
we all talk like that.
Yeah, we all talk like that. What are you talking about? Thank you to PJ Glasser. Your host has sent it in. Yeah, there is one game in the NBA tonight. I'm not staying up for the Lakers. Do you think that's why LeBron's like, oh, you know what, I got to rest up there?
Yes, play one of the worst teams in the league. That is actually a little bit intriguing with the trade being rescinded with Mark Williams and Dalton Connect.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a storyline there, but no, I think the Lakers probably beat the crap out of them. I doing the sports update yesterday, I didn't even notice that there was a game, so I got that wrong. I saw they were off until Thursday. And I guess they are.
No, it's fine. Like, if you were looking at the original schedule, you wouldn't have picked up on that.
Yeah, they must have added it in recently.
That was the makeup game. We got to talk about the salary cap in the NFL, what this might do for the Buffalo Bills. We've got time for your calls at 866-4326. 866-4FAN. It's a sports bar here in the Fan, Rochester.
You're listening to the FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester when you wake up, because mornings are better with sports. Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester.
Welcome back to Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia with you, Tim Schneider alongside, even though on our video it just says you're Mike Danger, playing the role today of Mike Danger. The Mike Danger understudy.
Yeah, I don't get a name tag, though.
Yeah.
Eventually, someday, perhaps, hopefully, but it's looking bleak because it's been many a year, and I still have no name tag.
Congratulations to Roger Goodell's NFL, where it's so profitable that each team will have $22 million more to spend if they so choose. Remember, the NFL cap, it's not, there's not a hard floor. There is a hard ceiling, supposedly, but, if teams want to not spend to it, they're certainly got the ability. But by and large, I think most NFL teams give you the impression that they're trying in some regard. That's kind of one thing that kind of makes it appealing. Just also keep this in mind that, that's 48% of the net profits go to the players. So congratulations to every owner who just made. Now they're not making the $22 million or a little bit more than that because there's operating costs and whatnot there, Tim. But
they're still doing just fine.
What other business do you just have year over year? It's not just the profits; it's the growth on top of that.
The cap rising the way that it has the last 2 years is unfathomable. Like, the cap is barely real to begin with, but now it's just a number so high and astronomical that it literally is not real. It's like, okay, here's a bunch of money. Go spend all of it and some, but also you can only spend a certain amount. But if you really want to, we can defer these years. It's all a charade, it feels like.
Right. Like the NFL does this with the void years. That's always kind of the funky thing where, okay, now we're getting to a level of accounting that even if I could fully explain it to you, I might glaze you over here with the explanation, all right? We'll just know that, okay, yes, you're paying it up front. We're going to account for it in a future year. I just describe it like as a credit card, okay? At some point, it'll come due. The initial reaction I have to this, because you'd be like, oh, that's great for the Buffalo Bills. Yes, it's great for every other NFL team too. If the Philadelphia Eagles decide, we like Sweat, but boy, what would our defense look like if we got Myles Garrett? Like, would they take a trade of 2 first-round picks and Cooper DeJean? Every time you're on with us, Tim, we're going to retreat to Myles Garrett talk until the guy gets traded. I'm not concerned if he goes to Philadelphia. I am concerned if he goes to Kansas City. Kansas City, a team that was kind of up against it and like, now they're going to have their comeuppance. Yes, they're going to well, not exactly, especially if they decide and do the right thing, Tim, where, hey, Travis, you're kind of old. We'd like to have you back at this number. No, you don't want to come back at this number? Okay, we're going to let you go. You can retire or you can go somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm not ready to pull the plug on him, but it would make sense, again, if it's a financial decision, sure. But the cap just rose so much that they added 2 Pro Bowl players, basically, with the allowance that they just got. Every player or every team just added 2 Pro Bowl caliber salaries to their roster just by the rise in the number. Like the last 2 years, it's gone up over $50 million. That's a franchise quarterback for every team.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, like 50. So last year the cap was at 255.4. These numbers aren't set yet exactly, but they're giving the range this year somewhere between 277.5 and 281. And as you mentioned, Tim, we just took the middle of that. That means the cap's gone up $53 million in 2 years.
That's a lot of money.
Which means, okay, that $53 million is actually 48%. So every team in this league has seen not their the growth we're just talking about.
Yeah, just the growth of the game, the sport, and the finances of it are. Again, I can't fathom a number that large.
That's why, and again, I talk about another topic that can glaze you over. I think in our lifetime, Like, you're going to see NFL ownership. We're going to, reminisce for the days. Hey, remember Jerry Jones? Remember, I don't think we're ever going to get to, the Buffalo Bills owned by Citibank or whatever it is. But just for fun, I just kind of Googled, all right, why would you buy an NFL team? Well, it's kind of a status thing, I think, for a lot of people.
Tough to get into, and once you're in, you're not leaving.
Yeah, so, what are other things like art? I'm like, okay, what is the most expensive piece of art that was ever sold? Salvatore Mundi in 2017, his painting of Jesus, $450 million. Okay, maybe in today's terms that's double, but that's the highest piece of art. We're talking about NFL franchises. In Buffalo, New York, check that. Suburban Buffalo, New York, that's going to go for, if you put it on the market today, you're easily $5 billion. There aren't going to be many individuals, Tim. We're going to get to a point where, I'd like to buy a team, and you're going to just write the check for $10 billion or whatever it is. That's why you're seeing this trend. For the Bills, I think it was done, okay, we actually need cash here. We're in a little bit of a crunch. Makes sense. Sell 10% of the team off. All done. Stadium going to go up. I never thought the New York Giants would be doing kind of that cash call unless they looked at it and be like, we may not be able to sell a team. This is the way we're going to hold on to it and then pass it along and pay the taxes that way. I mean, it's high finance there, but the idea that you're going to have more and more of these teams selling off minority pieces here, even if it is to a private equity firm.
Right. Amazon jumps in and buys half the league just because they can and nobody else can. And, Bezos, Amazon, phrase it how you want. That's effectively the route that we're going just because of how high the valuations are. I can't open up my wallet and hand somebody $6 billion and be like, I want this. Would you trade that painting for a football team or two? Because I would, but that's not actual cash. That's just right. It's just a piece of paper, effectively.
That's the original non-fungible token art. That's why, this is my take on art. Art is a take. That's all it is. Who deems what is good and what is bad? It's just one of those, all right, if you're willing to pay whatever it is, that's
it's worth whatever you're willing to pay. Yeah. And if it's 50 cents or $50 billion, I'm willing to take it.
Just kind of food for thought here on this kind of quiet. We're going to have spring training baseball soon enough tomorrow.
That's exciting.
We get the Dodgers. During the show, I wonder if that's – I don't even know. Can we get MLB Network? I don't know.
No, we have I refer to it as the poor people cable. We don't have any of the stations for a sports station. We don't have NHL Network. We don't have MLB Network. We don't have FS1. We don't have any of the stuff that we need to succeed in this or Heat.
Heat. Yeah.
So it's
well, I mean, okay, if we can't pay for heat properly, Tim, then what are you asking for? You're asking for real cable? That's going to be 3:05, by the way. Cubs and Dodgers. I'm just seeing if this is on TV tomorrow. It has to be. It has to be. You know what I'm going to do, Tim? I will put it up on my phone tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, we can.
And we'll just
set
it doesn't even matter. You don't care about the Cubs and Dodgers. I don't care about the Cubs and Dodgers. But you know what?
We just need
pictures. Yeah, just give me some of that.
It'll generate some heat in here for us too.
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, who's going to be in the Dodger lineup today? Let's. And if you're wondering, wait a second, is that early? Yeah, it's early because those are the two teams that are going to go over to Tokyo. So in order to get them kind of warmed up, more accurately, in order to get their pitchers warmed up, they do need that ramp up. Spring training is the one, Tim, where I think hockey actually has it best. Okay, how many games do we need? 6? All right, a couple weeks. Yeah, done.
Schedule them on your own and figure it out. Yeah, you have to play a certain amount, and you can only play so many, and it's up to the teams to schedule.
Yeah, if you're a position player in baseball, you probably hate all of this. You don't need the month and a half. Pitchers actually do. But because this is such a I can't even say cottage industry. It's big business, tourism, everything else. There's a lot of mouths that you feed off of the Cactus League and Grapefruit League and whatnot. Why not just have the pitchers go down and the batters show up 2 weeks later? Well, because you know what, you actually need all these games and the dollars that come along with the tourism revenue.
Yeah, the pitchers can't get the work necessary in without the batters being there for them either. You can only simulate and have so many side sessions before you actually got to face live skilled players, and you got to be down there for that. But it's it's picking up, and we are we are inching very, very close to baseball that matters.
Have you ever been to a spring training game?
I have not. No.
I've been to 2, and both of them were different experiences. The one, it was, oh my gosh, we got tickets to this. It was opening spring training game at Legends Field. So saw the Pirates and the Yankees. This is when Jeter and A-Rod on the team. And what they do at Legends Field is, like, legitimately, whoever is alive that's a Yankee legend on opening day, they will come out and wave to the crowd. So it was like, hey, here's Yogi Berra. And he waved. I'm like, oh, my gosh, that's really cool. So that was, like, something that felt a little bigger than spring training. The other one, because my wife's girlfriend, she lives in Lakeland. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go to the game myself. So I bought a ticket myself to watch the Tigers and Rays. And, Tim, when I tell you, like, hey, you can sit down low, you can hear the conversation between the ump and everything else, it's just a different vibe there. It would be like going to, like, say, the Wednesday night April game to see the Red Wings when the crowd isn't so great. But instead, you're in 75-degree temperatures, and you're watching actual major leaguers here kind of work on their craft. I thought it was really kind of cool. So.
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends that work in baseball, and their role is more prominent during the preseason or spring training. And they've said that the accessibility and the stuff that you can do as a fan in a spring training game is similar to, like, the accessibility we've got here with the Wings 24/7.
Yeah.
If you want to go get down on the action, you want to interact with the people, they're way more accommodating then than they are in May through August when they're actually working.
We've got our good friend Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period who will be joining us at the bottom of this hour. We got time for your calls on the other side. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. It's the Sports Bar here on the Fan Rochester.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Amherst coming off a rough loss on Kids Day. They're back at it tonight again at home, taking on Cleveland. Head coach Mike Leone on the Monsters.
They're a really offensively gifted team. They get a lot of really good players, great goalie. It's how we manage the puck, not giving them any easy offense and making sure we're above our checks and we're defending really hard. And it'll be a hard test for us tonight and good opportunity for us to respond after Sunday's game.
Tonight begins a 3-game in 4-day stretch for the Amherst. Don Stevens and Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call beginning at 7 here on the Sports Leader. We'll talk more hockey later this hour. Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period will join us. The NFL salary cap is going to go up in 2025, somewhere in the range of $22 million per team. Gene Battaglia, the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We will have another Week 1 Friday night game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Chargers will be the designated home team. That's Friday, September 5th. Their opponent, TBD.
Brazil straight to the Lombardi.
Yeah, that's the path.
People keep saying that.
Let's circle back on James Cook. Is he going to be the first running back that they commit a second contract to? That really is the biggest question.
They're going to have to hit on some draft picks, no matter what. Whether they make a trade for Myles Garrett or not, they're going to have to hit on their draft picks.
The combine.
The franchise tag window. Obviously, transition tags as well.
Legal tampering.
NFL free agents. Mike Danger.
I am a hero.
Gene Battaglia.
Joining us today, terrible time Timmy back in the Sports Bar.
That's me.
There is something good happening with Michael Leone and the Rochester Americans right now.
Amherst home tonight to Cleveland, and obviously Canada-U.S. in the Four Nations final tomorrow.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Our buddy Chris in South Central Kentucky writing in The Fan Rochester, our handle. I think it's funny that the anthem was booed in Quebec, a province that doesn't really want to be a part of Canada. All right, that's fair. I mean, that's still going on. Tim, I remember that growing up as a kid. Like, should there be two different countries? You know what? They've kind of worked it out over the years, but they took offense to that. So thank you, Chris, for listening as always. You can write to us, our handle, The Fan Rochester. You can call us at 866-4FAN. That's area code 585 here in Rochester, 866-432-6. Where the NBA is having all sorts of difficulty controlling their narrative. And Major League Baseball, where they're doing better, still they need a little bit of work in that regard, do they not? In the NHL, okay, they're having a good week here, but still, nothing compares to the NFL in the way they control their messaging. And this slow leak of NFL international games. You heard it in the open. So now we have the Chargers. So they took a West Coast team, and they're going to put them in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. Fantastic.
Sure.
We have the Jets and Browns at Tottenham Hotspur. We have the Jaguars at Wembley, the Colts in Berlin, the Dolphins in Madrid, and the Steelers in Dublin. What's the one thing I'm not telling you right now?
Their opponents.
Right. You mean to tell me you don't know who the Chargers are going to play week 1? You don't know who the Jets and Browns are going to play, or the Jaguars are going to play, for that matter? Now, it's all by design, of course, Tim. They know, okay, hey, we're not going to have any free agency here. Coaching cycle, that's all done. This is the quiet part of the calendar. We get to next week, we're going to be so excited to talk about stretching and vertical jumps and maybe there'll be a player who didn't show up at the combine. What does that mean? And it's just kind of more of a relaxed atmosphere. I just think that in this day and age, the combine, the NFL combine, is completely unnecessary. It really is. You don't need this sort of event to watch 40-yard dashes. They do it, all these players, on their pro day, right in their own school. You can interview anybody at any time. It's really, okay, we want to bring these guys in for the medicals, and that's really the main purpose of it. But you know what? While they're here, why don't we make it a TV show? My point being here, Tim, the NFL could easily tell you it's the Chargers against Team X here, and here's the date, and here's how you can watch. But you know what? We're going to save that little nugget for another day. And this is where you and I differ on one thing. And maybe this is where you are going to say, see, I'm right. I love NFL schedule nuts. And maybe that's because Nuggets. I'm just so hungry for, hey, who are the Bills going to open up against? I'm ready for next season. I've turned the page. I'm ready to see where the Bills are going to be. Are they going to get one of these overseas games? And you're one of the few that says basically, you know what, that's just kind of dumb. Let's just watch the games.
Yeah, I don't need a 7-month drag out of the schedule. And the stuff that they do when they release the schedule is fun and cool, but it's now an event, and just post the schedule online and let me see who we're playing. I don't need the 7-minute movie trailer to see that they're playing the same teams in their division twice and that they're playing the same teams in the standings position. Like, we know who they're playing.
Oh, it's a big deal. You got to get the social media and what are the Chargers going to do? They're going to do the Sims? Are they going to do some anime? What are they? Yeah, it's become this whole thing, and in the NFL, that whatever that day in May when they drop it, they will own that cycle. Tim, you don't have to go back this far. The economy was really down and out in 2001 because of 9/11, and in 2002, they announced the NFL schedule in 2002 in March. You can look it up. They announced it in March, and I thought it was fantastic. Wow, NFL free agency, and here's your schedule. And part of the reason was, back in 2002, you needed to make sure that all the tickets were sold and everything was sold. And you know what? Let's kind of get a jump on that. Here's your renewal here. And that was actually part of it. But how many teams actually sell individual tickets anymore?
Right.
Not too many.
Yeah. And
you want, I mean, Buffalo, yes, but you're going to sell out one way or another.
There's teams that are always working on making their sales, but for the one thing that I would like is the international games. If I have a team involved, which I do, actually almost everyone does now with how many there are, but I need to know when that is. And even the players, they need to have all that stuff in orders to make sure that they can get there and back with all the border stuff we've got going on. And I can't do that until they announce it, whenever they announce it. But it could, if they have it, and I'm sure that they have it, that could be out, and that people could be planning for those. Those are big events. That's not just a game. That's a vacation, and that should be out already.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, the Bills are playing in Nashville. My gosh, let's kind of do this and have some fun. No, you go overseas, you require that, and it goes back to my point. Let's say the Bills are playing in one of these games. They already know. But they can't tell you. They've got to wait for the NFL to say, this is the date we are announcing this game. Now, we know the Chargers, that's going to be week 1 on the Friday, just because that has to be, you're going down there.
Do you think that the teams involved know already? Not a single one would leak out?
Tim, they don't leak out the NFL schedule. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and those in the know, okay, they put in their requests, and then it's a few weeks ahead of time that they find out what their schedule is. But they all sign these non-disclosures. Every NFL social media team. To me, it's remarkable that social media teams, because they got to put together their videos and something creative,
right?
That actually kind of gets done. I mean, one of these years we're going to get a good leak. We had it with the NCAA bracket one year. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That ruined my life, that bracket. That bracket was the year that the Bonnies got snubbed and stupid Syracuse got in.
Listen, I don't want to. Okay.
Look at what you did to me.
Number
Just
one,
broke me again.
Number one, Syracuse is an advertiser here on the fan, and Bonaventure isn't. Number two, I don't know what it is like for an A-10 team to make the tournament. So just get out of here with that here. Yeah, what was that like for you? No, this can't be real, and then you were like, "This is real. I hate the world."
Yeah, I had to work a remote or something here, and I came from whatever the remote was, and I met a couple friends.
A remote being just hey, we're at
we had a live event somewhere,
yeah.
And then the A-10 tournament ended because that ends on a Sunday, just like and then the selection show, and it's all right, I'll meet you guys out. It'll be fun. We're going to the tournament, and we never go to the tournament, so let's check it out. And we're all sitting there, and one of my buddies sees a leak online. He's like, "There's no way that we're not on it." We're not on it, and Syracuse doesn't even have to do the plan.
Well, it's funny because every year you have leaks, but for some reason people are like, I think this is it. This looks like it's it. This looked like it, and then you go through the first bracket. It's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Just turn off the TV. I don't need to. Sorry, Bonaventure, Debbie Downer. Can somebody do that with the NFL schedule someday? Probably it will happen in our lifetime, and probably that person they will find out, and they'll never work in the league again. I don't know if we ever found out who that hero was that leaked that bracket.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from. I just know that once we got about 4 pairings in, and everything was right, and it was like, oh no. And then you got to sit there and watch it happen. Like, you know that it's happening because you see how accurate it is so far. And then it gets to the end. It's like, they got all of it right. We're not in with a shoe-in resume. And you're just staring into the abyss, wondering what to do next. And in that night, it was drink heavily. But here we are.
The story here about these teams here now, Ryan Talbot and others, this is always kind of okay, well, how does this apply to the Bills? Well, of these teams that are going to go, I mean, do we say overseas for Brazil? We just call them international games. For these teams that are playing in an international game, 4 of them are actually on the Bills' schedule. They would have to go on the road. 2 divisional games, the Jets and Dolphins, and then you also get the Steelers in Dublin, and you get the Browns. So the Bills are scheduled to play the Browns on the road. Now, I want to stop short saying, well, they'll never put a divisional game overseas. They put divisional games as an international game. The Bills once hosted the Dolphins up in Toronto, and let me tell you something about that game, Tim. There were more Dolphin fans than Bills fans, okay? And maybe that was a different era, but I won't say there's a 0% chance, but for the sake of us trying to lay out what this would mean, the Jets and Dolphins, I don't expect the Bills to be going to Madrid, or I don't expect the Bills to be going to Tottenham Hotspur to face the Jets. Would they take the Bills to go face the Browns in London? Would they take the Bills to go face the Steelers in Dublin? The Steelers-Bills game feels bigger to me than one random game in Dublin. You could put the Steelers against whoever. Same thing with the Browns. A lot of these games. Would I be in favor of that? That would be the question. And my answer is, from a competitive standpoint, no. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you wouldn't get a big crowd there for the Browns. And trust me, the way the Bills just laid an egg against the Jaguars, we're going to do our sleep studies, and we're going to bank sleep, and we're going to be ready, and we're going to hit the ground running. They look like they were jet lagged for that game. So to me, I don't want to take any chances. I think I would rather have the Bills play the Browns actually in Cleveland. I would rather have the Bills play the Steelers actually in Pittsburgh. I know that's kind of an unpopular thing, but I think that the travel is more of a deterrent than the actual whole home crowd.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially with the caliber of the two teams involved. Like, the Steelers are always competitive somehow. The Browns are always non-competitive somehow. So just the players and the talent on the field, you can handle your business in a 3-hour drive. And let's face it, these teams aren't really driving that long. They're jumping on a plane for 25 minutes and they're there. Like, you get in, you get out, and you go home. You can't do that in an international setting where you've got to travel the world and take care of business. It's still possible that they do take care of business, but it's a whole lot easier to do it from 200 miles away.
Yeah.
So
that's it. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. As we'll get more little nuggets, because they won't say, hey, here's who all the opponents are. No,
one at a time.
One at a time. And this is my idea for the NFL, Tim, and maybe this would kind of deter from them owning the news cycle, but what if they did like a slow leak of the schedule? Like, okay, it's the first week in April, and we're going to tell you who is your team's going to be playing in week 1.
I kind of like that, actually, because the way that they do the top 100 players right now or whatever it is, they do 10 at a time, and it spans a few weeks. You can do 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks there, and then the players and everybody knows, but that also stretches out. Like, if I'm scheduling to go, like, how long do I have to wait to get my week's 18 game? Like, I could go both ways, I suppose, but if I can have all the information at once, give it to me. And they could do it now if they really felt like it. So yeah, if you want to dominate, which they do, if you want to dominate, you stretch it out for as long as possible and make people focus on your product. But man, just let me schedule my week 18 vacation when I can do it. I can do it in February, and I'm set next December. I'm good. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just grumpy complainer.
You're grumpy. I know what's going to make you happy. And even though the sun's a little bit out now, it stopped snowing here in Rochester for everybody who might be outside the area. Yeah, we're going to put on baseball this time tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Cubs and Dodgers. Do I care about the Cubs? No. Do I care about the Dodgers? Really, no. But
we care about baseball and feed it, inject it. I am so ready for baseball, and I'm excited. Like, you can see what I'm wearing now. I'm longing for good weather and baseball and softball.
Yeah, your softball kind of uniform. I'm still wearing the. I mean, I'm not really concerned with the way I dress here
put
for
the
the
hood
YouTube.
back up. It's cold.
Yeah, for the YouTube, I'm concerned about warmth, as are you.
This is less than desirable working conditions. I might be filing a grievance with somebody somewhere.
Like Tim, like the thermometer. Like
it's lying.
I appreciate Greg. Like it's just very, very drafty here, and people. Oh, you guys are soft. Well,
I will gladly take the soft card if it means I can get some damn heat.
Let's talk to Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period. He is in Boston. He's our good friend. He will give us his expertise about this great matchup tomorrow night. And, yeah, I'm sure he's going to appreciate questions about the team that's not really relevant in the NHL, but that we all care about locally, the Sabres. What will they do? What should they do? We'll talk to Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period that's coming up here. My name is Gene Battaglia with Tim Schneider here on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening Rochester Sports Update.
Tonight begins a 3-game and 4-day stretch for the Rochester Americans. They're all at home. Cleveland is the opponent tonight. Don Stevens and Andrew Mossberg will have your call beginning at 7 here on the Sports Leader. We'll talk some hockey coming up next. Of course, a big game coming up tomorrow night. We'll talk to Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period. He joins us here in the Sports Bar. Steve Tasker today on One Bills Live, banging the drum for the Buffalo Bills to go get a defensive lineman.
Everybody knows a guy like Garrett, Crosby, Hendrickson, these other pass rushers that are at Khalil Mack in his day, man, they're game wreckers. So the Bills need one of those guys, and I think pretty badly. Sooner or later, they got to get a guy that can get after it up front, and they haven't gotten one yet.
The NFL salary cap to go up in the range of $22 million per team in 2025. Gene Battaglia, the Sports Leader, the Fan Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
The center of the sports universe, not just the hockey universe, the sports universe is going to be tomorrow night in Boston, and always in the middle of it is our good friend Dennis Bernstein, who is in Boston from the fourth period. Dennis, appreciate the time coming on today. And before we before we start, anybody that has the LA roots that you do, I'm glad to hear that you're okay. And how's everybody making out in Los Angeles after just that terrible event from last month?
Well, thanks for asking. We were about a mile from the evacuation zone. It was that close. I had two friends that lost houses.
Oh.
It's sad. There's a lot of rebuilding and a lot of healing that needs to be done in Los Angeles. So it was scary. I've been through a couple of wildfires before, but they've never been that close to the house. My wife actually, I was in Montreal for an event with CCM, the hockey manufacturer. And my wife left the house for a night, and I was supposed to do our radio show on SiriusXM on Saturday. I couldn't concentrate, guys. I got on a plane Saturday morning a couple of weeks ago, flew home, but we were all safe and sound. We only stayed out of the house one night, but I had friends, a couple miles from my house, didn't have electricity for 3 weeks. It's sad, and I've spent a lot of time in Pacific Palisades and Malibu in my 25 years in LA. Just tragic. And you know what? We talk about our sports heroes, but there's no bigger heroes than the first responders and the firemen that saved a lot of lives and a lot of property, even with all the destruction.
Yeah, Dennis, I'm grateful that you and your family, and I'm really sad to hear about your friends, and just let us know we're all thinking about you. And it's almost like, hey, we're having fun talking about sports while this other stuff is, kind of still going on. Dennis, what was it like for you to observe that scene in Montreal with the booing of the anthem?
Okay, so I think that for the people that wanted to make a thing out of it, be honest with you, made too much out of it. Because here's what I experienced. There's a gondola that hangs over the ice at Bell Center, right? And I was there. The booing wasn't that loud, number one. Number two, some people sang the anthem. As a matter of fact, I had a couple next to me at the hotel when I was eating breakfast the next day. They actually sang Star Spangled Banner, and they're from British Columbia, right? There was applause from some people afterwards. Here's the thing, guys. I'm all for freedom of expression, because if we lose that, fine. It was so misguided, the booing. Like, I get it, there's frustration, but let's be real. Canada's never going to be the 51st state, right? If you wanted to really be an activist, go out in the 0-degree weather and protest outside with signs. Go to the U.S. Embassy or whatever, right? It was so misguided. And you know what the best thing about it was? After 9 seconds, nobody cared about the booing. I don't think there'll be any tomorrow night. I think it was just overplayed. Because here's the thing about Montreal, to be honest with you, and I've said this privately and publicly. And I think you guys mentioned as well, half the people in that province want to leave Canada. So you got some people that booed that probably hate the U.S. and Canada. So I think it was overplayed. What it did, it put a very small stain on an amazing tournament. I hate politics in sports. I'm glad it wasn't the reaction. I thought it would be far worse. And when you weighed it against the response that Mario Lemieux got on the ice when he showed up, that's what I'll remember from that. It's a parenthetical thing at this point in time. I don't expect it tomorrow night anyway, because everybody's focused on one of the biggest games in sports, as you guys mentioned, in a very long time.
Yeah, Dennis, and again, I went to Montreal last summer. had a blast. Everybody was so nice. This perception that, hey, they're not really into Americans and they don't like you and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't. If that was true, that was generations ago. I didn't experience that at all.
Yeah, agreed. And I kid with people. I'm an honorary Canadian. I've been to Canada so many times. I have a Nexus card. So I go back and forth over the border, right? So I think it was just overblown. It was just misguided. And I understand the frustration, the freedom of expression, but really it was something that didn't need to happen. But again, the players always save us, right? That they put on a masterful performance and a masterful game, and now we can move on to a championship game here in Boston tomorrow night.
Yeah, Dennis, and again, I got this whole wrong. I'm going to admit that. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be like an all-star tournament, and these guys are all going to know that they're playing. What is it? Why do these guys? What is it about the sport of the sport of hockey, the culture, when you compare it to, say, the NBA or Major League Baseball, some of these other all-star events that just don't work?
All right, little sidebar. Imagine you had a choice to watch the NBA, whatever that was, and USA Canada, and you started to watch the NBA stuff, and you said, "Oh, you know what? Let me tune over to the USA hockey game." 15 seconds into the game, and you missed that. Right? There's no comparison. Here's the thing. Last year, we did an all-star gifting suite in Toronto, and Cale McCarr was there. And I said to Cale, "Hey, this Four Nations." Before I could finish the question, Cale goes, "I want to play." Here's why it's been so great. It's been 9 years. These players have been waiting for this almost a decade. They've wanted best for best. It was part of the contention when they did the CBA that they wanted to play internationally and best on best. And these players really want it. They're competitive. And it wasn't an all-star game. And, not even if – look, I had the privilege of coaching Cale a year ago, but if you talk to the guys at the media availabilities 1 or 2 games before, you would know that this was really something special. And I always knew it would be because it's been such a long wait. People have been salivating. And now you see I think the audience was 11 million people on Saturday. You had the casual fan, the casual hockey fan tuning in. You had the casual sports fan tuning in. And because those 9 seconds were captured on not only SportsCenter but other, you're going to have non-sports fans tuning in tomorrow night to see what's going to go on and what's going to go down. Do I think there'll be 3 fights in 9 seconds? I don't. But I just think it was such a long time in the making that this is what the players wanted. And Matthew Tkachuk said it best. He goes, "This is our time." Not unlike what Herb Brooks said in Miracle, right? So I think it's just a perfect combination. It was a perfect storm of the right. And I'll give Montreal credit for one thing. If that game happened in Toronto, half the people would have been at the Air Canada Club drinking, and missed the start of the game. Montreal, they were there before the game, ready to go. The passion of the fans. It was just a perfect night for that hockey game.
Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period, our guest here. So the CBA is up after next season. Next season, we know the Olympics. That should be a lot of fun. It'll be even bigger. Dennis, beyond 2026, could you see a Four Nations thing kind of replacing the All-Star game going forward?
I don't see. Well, there's going to be an All-Star game in Long Island on 2027. What they might do in Olympic years is maybe have an All-Star game before the Olympics. I don't see it ever going away because here's why. Promises were made. Like the Islanders, when they built UBS Arena, they were promised an All-Star game, right? I think what you have to do is have it like, here's the thing. I was at the All-Star game in Fort Lauderdale. It was a blast. Now, I'm about to disrespect the city, but they kind of deserve it. Nobody cared when it was in St. Louis. Do you think the players want to go to St. Louis in January to play an All-Star game? No, of course not, right? But in Fort Lauderdale, when they go to the Elbow Room and hang out and go on the beach, it depends where the venue is, guys. So I don't think that's going to go away because, this is not a charity. This is a money-making business. There's HRR when you do the All-Star game. But I agree with you because what's going to happen, to your point, you're going to compare an All-Star game to this tournament? Not really. So I don't think it'll supplant it. But I think the greatest thing about all this with the CBA, the international calendar is set till 2032. I think you're going to have all-star games dropped in there. They're going to have to reimagine it again. But you're right. It may pale in comparison. But this is what we wanted from this tournament anyway. So I'll worry about that in future years.
We've got some breaking news out of Frank Saravalli about 7 minutes ago that Team USA has invited Devils defenseman Brett Pesky and Sabres center Tage Thompson to head to Boston as insurance for potential replacements for Thursday's game.
Yeah, does that signal anything, Dennis? Because we know McAvoy. Well, I can't say 100% certain, but your thoughts there on just kind of the injuries in Canada, for that matter, getting McCarr back here.
Yeah, the biggest advantage for Canada is the health of USA. Right? Brady's not 100%. He didn't practice today. Right? Matthew, his groin is obviously an issue. Right? Austin Matthews, had upper body soreness. I think that's the big. There's not much to separate these teams except the health. Canada's much more healthy, and it's precautionary. And look, here's the thing: this is the coldest in Boston it's been in a decade. Oh, guys got sick. Wow, what a shock, right? So it's just precautionary. But again, I think and what happens? You guys, what happens? One guy goes out to dinner, gets sick, comes back, goes in the locker room, and there's 20 other guys around. So they catch the bug that's going around. It's not just the USA. It was Sweden earlier in the tournament. You mentioned Cam McCarr got sick. The McAvoy thing is very, very usual. So the one thing that may mar this a little bit is that certainly the USA is not going to be at full strength. So I think the question for Matthew and Brady and Austin is what percentage will they be healthy? It's not going to be 100%. But you know what? I'd take a 75% Matthew Tkachuk or an 85% Brady Tkachuk or a 90% Austin Matthews tomorrow night to try to win that game.
Dennis Bernstein in the fourth period. One game, you get a bounce here or there, but is it fair to say that the U.S. has a strong advantage in goal? Hellebuck over Bennington, Dennis?
Well, you would think so. But Jordan Bennington played in this arena in 2019 in a Game 7 and won the Stanley Cup. And I will tell you, if you listen to the interviews of these guys, a lot of these guys, like the Tkachuks and a lot of other players, they said it on Saturday, they'll say it again tomorrow. This is the biggest game I've ever played in. That's not the case with Jordan Bennington. This is a great game. It's not more important than Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final. So, yes, Connor Hellebuck, without question, is a better goaltender. If you watch the tournament, Jordan Bennington gave up some soft goals. But guess what? In the big spot, he made the big save against Mika Zibanejad in overtime against Sweden. He made big stops when he needed to. So, yes, advantage to USA, but I think people are overplaying the advantage that the USA has because Jordan has won in this building in the biggest game of his life.
He's in Boston tomorrow night. That is going to be the center of the sports universe. The Four Nations final, the United States taking on Canada. Dennis Bernstein, SiriusXM, the fourth period, where you can find his content. So, Dennis, how difficult is it for the U.S. to actually knock off the Canadians here twice in a couple weeks?
Well, they ain't going to win a game 5-4. So I don't think it's that. Here's the thing. U.S. played great defensively. And I'll give you two guys, and I'm break your heart with one. Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel are fantastic defensive players. They are great. There was a 2-on-1. The USA had a power play against Finland. The 2-on-1. Finland went the other way. And Jack from the other goal line, I didn't know he could skate that. He's probably going 25 miles an hour. He busted all the way back to the deep in the offense and the U.S. defensive zone to break up a 2-on-1. Austin Matthews won 67% of his faceoffs against Team Canada. That's their path to victory. I don't think there's going to be a lot of offense in this game like it was on Saturday, but Austin and Jack have been fantastic in the middle. If they can control the middle again, I think the U.S. still can win despite being certainly not at full strength.
Dennis, you know we love hockey on our show. You know our region loves hockey. We're going to be in regardless. But for the rest of the country that might be sampling this for the first time, Dennis, it's a difficult question I'm going to ask you. But in what ways can the NHL, can the sport of hockey actually kind of capitalize this and keep the ball rolling here?
Well, the goalies fight tomorrow night at the start of the game. That could help, right? So that would help. Maybe have 5
Let
fights.
Go, yeah.
I got an email. There's probably now 20 props on fights tomorrow night, which is ridiculous and funny, right? They already have because it's been on every platform, every sports show around the country. People, like I said, I think that non-sports fan is going to tune in because it's USA versus Canada. I think the platform's already established. Now, the NHL has to strike while the iron's hot, right? Go get your advertisers for the next World Cup in 2 years. And plus, remember, this is a magnificent lead into the Olympics. This could be, if this game goes away, this could be one of the best NHL seasons of all time, right? Because you still have that stretch run. We still have the trade deadline. We still have the playoffs. Oh, sorry, Sabres fans. You don't have the playoffs, but that's okay. I just think that this could be I think this is just the beginning, to be honest with you. I think the awareness of the sport, because of the way this tournament was set up, has really heightened the visibility of the sport. So I think they've already I think you've made hockey fans in this tournament already. And if we have another epic on Saturday, it's just going to build off that. I can't wait. Now, the one mitigating factor, guys, remember, the Saturday night game was on ABC. This is on ESPN. So when you maybe compare the numbers for viewership, it may be down. But again, I think they've already taken advantage because you know what? The younger players, the 16-year-old, the next Jack Eichel, the next Austin Matthews are watching this, and when his turn comes to play in this tournament, they're going to want to play in this tournament. Now, the tournament's going to be expanded when the World Cup of Hockey, so you might have 6 or 8. I think they've already taken advantage of this because I see the reaction from the non-sports fans and the casual hockey fans about what happened on Saturday night and hopefully tomorrow night here in Boston.
Dennis, this is where I make the pivot, and I'll start with a pivot. This, like, I've always had in my mind that the time I get to meet you in person would be at a Sabres playoff game. It's not going to be this year. It might not be next year. I don't know when I'm going to actually meet you in person, Dennis. I'd have to go to L.A. or Toronto or somewhere like that.
Sure.
Trade deadline coming up. I guess I'll ask the question this way. How does the NHL as a whole view the Buffalo Sabres franchise here in 2025?
Well, I think some GMs might want to take advantage of the general manager currently and make a trade for maybe someplace. I to be honest with you, there's some really good players on that team. There's 2 first overall picks on the blue line, and you can't play good defense. To be honest with you, here's the thing. Kevin Adams wasn't the best choice to be the GM, without question, right? Because what was his background? He was running the harbor side on the financial side. They needed a quality GM that's been experienced and done this before. Maybe it happens with the next guy. We can question Lindy Ruff coming back, right? So I think the way it's viewed is that, you know what, they're not a contender. I think there's certainly a core, with Tage. And I know there's a rumor about Alex Tuck. That's not happening, okay? Right. So I just think they have some really good players. They don't have a really good team. And I don't know what it's going to take. There's got to be different parts, right? Because the parts here aren't working. And, I'm sure Lindy has pulled all the levers he can and team can't get going. And I've said this to you on the show a lot, other than saying I say a prayer for Sabres fans every night. The parts aren't working. There's no other levers to pull. So you really, I don't want to say you're going to rebuild because there is a core here that I think is really good. It's like it's the middle 6 guys. It's the middle pair defense. That's what the failure is in Buffalo. So I think the high-end guys can produce. I just don't think that they've picked the right players to support their high-end guys, and that's why you have 13 seasons without playoffs.
Yeah, it's 13 going on 14. And, Dennis, we talk about the reasons here, but is ownership, that's the common denominator here, and it's so weird because you see Terry Pegula and what they do with the Buffalo Bills and the Sabres. It's just been a comedy of errors on the other hand. Your thoughts on the ownership, and every once in a while we'll get an unsubstantiated rumor about the Sabres being on the block or something like that. Do you hear anything in that regard?
I think if you wanted a piece of Sabres, you could probably have it right now. I don't think a full sale, I don't think so, right? So I think that's part of it. Look, I just think that, and when people ask me that, I answer the way that you set up the question. They own the Bills. The Bills have run pretty good the last time I checked. I don't think it's ownership. I think if they needed to spend the money and go get the money, because that's what you want from your owner, to spend the money, right? And I think he would be able to commit to the money. So I don't think it's that. I think it's the choice of management, the choice of coaches, not necessarily the choice of players. So I think that the biggest misstep for ownership is not the willingness to maybe spend the money for players. It's picking the people that pick the players. I think that's the biggest fault with ownership. Not necessarily that they're not committed or not all in. And even if they do look this, to be honest with you guys, there's more than one team that if you want to buy right now, you probably could. There's maybe 2, 3, or 4, right? So it's not just that. So I have because they run the Bills so well, I don't think it's ownership because I don't think they just go off the path and go in an entirely different direction to run the Sabres.
Yeah, our joke on our show here, Dennis Bernstein is our guest here. After watching Sam Reinhart win with the Panthers, and then the year before that, you had Jack Eichel.
Brandon Montour and Michael.
Right. We go back to Ryan O'Reilly. I want to congratulate Casey Middlestat and the Colorado Avalanche for winning the 2025 Cup, Dennis.
Look, that's to my point. Wrong guys making the decisions. So with respect to, the organization and the team and the players who come in and come out. And I don't think it's players don't want to play there because, I keep going back to Alex Tuck. Alex Tuck's from Western New York. He loves playing there. He doesn't want to leave, right? So I think that – and guys, if they had a good team, what that building would be like. It'd be one of the best buildings in the league. But you know what? The fans vote would have – it's been far too long. Half the teams make the playoffs. And now you're going on 14 years. It's not good enough. And I just think it lays with team management right now.
Yeah, it's funny because every year we would have this discussion. Okay, we think we can make a run. Oh, there's a lot of competition here. This Boston's down, and there's Ottawa jumping up here. Like
Columbus is in the playoffs
Right.
this year, guys. Columbus had that tragedy with the Goudreau brothers. I said, there's no way. They're going to be the worst team in the league. Look at them. It's possible. It's doable. You have to get the right people in the right places to make it happen.
Dennis Bernstein, the fourth period. He is in Boston. Dennis, tell everybody what time your show is on and what kind of content they can get at the fourth period.
Okay, so for tomorrow night, I'm going to do the post-game show with Scotty Loughlin. SiriusXM has the rights, so we're going to do the full broadcast. Steve Cooley and Andrew Raycroft, the great analyst from Boston, are going to do the play-by-play. And me and Scotty Loughlin are going to step in the booth for post-game. And then our show, The Hot Stove, on Saturdays from 11 to 1 Eastern on SiriusXM every Saturday. And then you can catch me in 97 different places. Certainly, you guys were the first request for coming up, teaming up tomorrow. So I said, okay, got to go on the sports bar. But I got 9 requests already, I think, to do shows tomorrow. So it's that's where you can find me. You know what? I'm not hiding. If you want to find me, you can find me.
You can find. Well, good luck. And by the way, Rochester guy, calling the shots tomorrow night. Torts. I mean, he got his start here with the Amerks, Dennis, and he's looking forward to it. Dennis,
I spent time with him in Tampa for 6 months. For 1 year, I spent with him. He was the best. He was great. I know he has his detractors. I know his anger gets a hold of him sometimes. But to me, he was great. He's a great coach. But he's probably wondering, in that game against Sweden, why the Sam Ersson that played in goal for Sweden isn't playing the Sam Ersson that's playing in Philadelphia for the season.
Yeah, all these storylines when we get back to the action this weekend, Dennis. I can't wait for it. You've got a busy schedule. Really appreciate your time, Dennis. Thanks so much, and good luck tomorrow.
Always great being on the Sports Bar, boys. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dennis. Dennis Bernstein, fourth period, Los Angeles-based. Go back to the beginning of that conversation, 1 mile away from the evacuation zone.
That's crazy. He was awesome. That was great.
Oh yeah, he is the best. He is. We put him on the first few weeks of our show. I'm like, my gosh, this guy is.
I thought you were
a star.
legitimately friends with him through other means until just now when you said that.
No, he's just that good a guy. He's like one of these. I'm going to give you the shirt off my back type of guys. Like whenever, hey, do you have time? Part of it too is he just loves covering the sport so much, and really he kind of did it his own way. And now he's got a show nationally on Sirius, and his website gets a ton of hits, and they're doing good by the sport. I guess the question I asked was, I knew there wasn't an easy answer, and he kind of said, well, you go out and you make the ask now, but this is all going to be great. We're all going to be coming off. If you're in the hockey community, that's great. How do you capitalize on this after this game? And I just don't know the answer to that. I mean, are we going to go back to talking predominantly NBA and everything Friday and Saturday, or
It starts with a winning product, and if they win, then you've got something to talk about, even if your NHL team isn't winning, which is the case around here. But I mean, I remember being, I don't know, man, 8 years old when they did the World Cup of Hockey in the mid-90s, and Mike Richter stood on his head, and that was awesome, and part of why I love hockey as much as I do. Like that in the Eastern Conference Final between the Devils and the Rangers, that set me in love with the game. What's happening this week might be doing the same for somebody else around a similar age today.
The interesting answer he gave to the, all right, you're from the outside. What are you seeing here in Buffalo? What are people seeing? And it's not ownership. Didn't mention Lindy Ruff as the part of the problem. It's Kevin Adams, a guy who was running the Harbor Center.
Who would have thought how bad of a result that would be? Like he's a hockey mind. He's a hockey guy. He's a Stanley Cup winner.
No, but you can't shortcut it though, Tim. You really have to put in your time learning scouting, learning dealing with agents, learning dealing with all that stuff. You really can't just cut your teeth as the GM. Chris Drury was the assistant GM. I mean, that was a big jump at the time. And we were in the middle of the pandemic. It was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, whatever.
5 years later, and where are we?
We're probably worse off now than we were then.
Yes.
And that's pretty sad because those are some pretty lean years. I mean, failing on purpose for Eichel was fine. Doing nothing after acquiring Eichel and other countless top 10 picks.
You had Reinhart.
O'Reilly.
Yeah, O'Reilly. Yep.
Power, Darlene, Ristolainen. Should I keep going? I don't want to keep going. There's too many names, and they're all very good, and they're successful somewhere else. But yeah, that's where we are.
Let's talk NFL coming up next.
Okay.
As we will talk about, what the Bills could do here with this found money. Well, it's not just for the Bills. We'll explain. Time for your calls as well at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. It's a sports bar here on The Fan Rochester.
Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
It's hockey night in the Flower City. Cleveland coming to town tonight. Tonight beginning a busy stretch. 3 games in 4 days for the Amherst, all at home. Amherst head coach Mike Leone on tonight's opponent.
They're a really offensively gifted team. They get a lot of really good players, great goalie. It's how we manage the puck, not giving them any easy offense and making sure we're above our checks and we're defending really hard. And it'll be a hard test for us tonight and good opportunity for us to respond after Sunday's game.
Don Stevens and Andrew Mossbergs will have the call beginning at 7 here on the Sports Leader. The NFL salary cap to go up in the range of $22 million per team in 2025. NBA, just one game tonight. It's a makeup game. Charlotte playing the LA Lakers in LA. Gene Battaglia, the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sport Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We will have another Week 1 Friday night game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Chargers will be the designated home team. That's Friday, September 5th. Their opponent, TBD.
Brazil straight to the Lombardi.
Yeah, that's the path.
People keep saying that.
Let's circle back on James Cook. Is he going to be the first running back that they commit a second contract to? That really is the biggest question.
They're going to have to hit on some draft picks, no matter what. Whether they make a trade for Myles Garrett or not, they're going to have to hit on their draft picks.
The combine.
The franchise tag window, obviously transition tags as well.
Legal tampering.
NFL free agent. Mike Danger.
I am a hero.
Gene Battaglia.
Joining us today, terrible time Timmy back in the sports bar.
That's me.
There's something good happening with Michael Leone and the Rochester Americans right now.
Amherst home tonight to Cleveland, and obviously Canada-U.S. in the Four Nations final tomorrow.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Terrible time Timmy or a terrible take Timmy? Do you have a preference on that?
I would much rather be a terrible time than have a terrible take, especially when the take wasn't terrible.
What was the take that wasn't terrible? Oh, no, that was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Like, if you said that 2 years from now, Taron Johnson might be, might have had his peak, but your idea that he's an average player, it's like, no, people, they listen intently, Tim. They put you on blast right away, as they should. Now, my take, which was bad but wasn't a terrible take, I'm like, I'm done with the All-Star stuff. Hey, if you want to have your little hockey party here, this Four Nations thing, go ahead, knock yourself out. I underestimated these guys and what it means for them to play for their country. And I'm applying NBA and Major League Baseball, Pro Bowl logic. Like, they're just a different breed. Now, talking with Dennis Bernstein, it's a little disappointing that because these things are planned out so far in advance that this is not going to be the new format. This is actually going to be the exception more than the norm. We'll go back to, all right, post-Olympics, just your NHL All-Star game. Welcome to the new arena in Long Island where the Honors host the yawn. I don't want to see that. I'd rather see a tournament like this, Tim, and you could make a lot of money off this if you move the venues around. I mean, it's a windfall here for everybody in Boston and Montreal.
Yeah, this was really excellently done. I know that they're coming. They announced right before the first game of the tournament a week ago, they said that they were going to do something every 2 years off Olympic years, a World Cup of Hockey. I don't know when they're going to do that, and I don't know if it's going to succeed like this did, but this blew the door. I think it exceeded expectations so hard that they might have to reconsider like doing this at least every few years.
Well, the other thing too is, let's just kind of be honest. It's the timing of this. When you can own the calendar, and the NBA, to use a football phrase, they punted. They did. We don't care about the NBA All-Star game. We really don't. If the NBA was just playing regular season games, okay, maybe. College basketball, just because where the sport is at, we're really not paying attention to that. We're just not until we get to bracket time. This was the perfect timing for the NHL to go into this right off of, oh my gosh, football is over. What do we do? Okay, I guess we'll watch this. Oh my gosh, fight, another fight. Perfect timing for hockey.
Yeah, this worked out perfectly for them. And again, part of it is how well it was executed. It could have been a nothing burger. It might not have done as well as it did, except somehow the players made us care about it. Like we were talking about this a week ago, and it's like, all right, it might be fun or something to keep your eye on. And 9 seconds into the game Saturday night was like, holy crap, this is more than just a game. This is important to them, which makes it important to us.
Well, and Dennis, he was great. And he's going to get, he says how many, he has 9 radio appearances tomorrow. Every one of them is going to ask him about the political aspect of this. We can't ignore that. That also plays into this, that if you're halfway in tune with the world, whether that's tariffs or 51st state or whatever it is, yeah, it's a little edgy right now. And now here are the two nations on the ice, and, oh, we're the visitors and we're getting booed. Oh, and your head coach is actually John Tortorella, whose son is an Army Ranger, okay? Yeah, I could understand how guys would kind of take that personal, and now there's actually odds online. You can't bet on this in New York State, but will the president show up tomorrow night in Boston?
I looked it up when we were discussing this earlier. Ronald Reagan used to go to Kings games. That's all I could find. And Obama was
I think
a sports fan. I don't know if he ever went to any games, but he had them to the White House after they won the Cup.
Yeah, I don't know if Biden ever went to a Caps game. Gosh, if I was a president, I'd be going like, yes, I'm the president. I'm going to go to this, go to that.
I would like to do this and this and
right,
this.
I guess it doesn't work that way. You got to kind of actually.
I mean, it'd be a hell of a right now, President Trump is on a sports bucket list tour. If he goes to this with the Daytona 500 and the Super Bowl, that's a pretty incredible couple of weeks here.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, and I've seen this come across my feed. And again, we're kind of going into an area where, all right, sports and politics doesn't mix, but we love the Buffalo Bills. And, well, there's a picture of Dalton Kincaid and Spencer Brown, along with Tommy Doyle, Vandermark also, backup offensive lineman, with the president.
Yeah.
That is newsworthy. It does spark something in some people. I just go back to what Josh Allen said, okay? If you think these differences between me and you and everybody else are new, I purposely try to stay out of the conversation, but for that matter, Josh Allen does a great job. But the way he explained it to us on the sports bar is that during training camp, they will all eat dinner together, and they have what they call the dinner society. The Buffalo, can you imagine this? The dinner society where they're going to talk about money and politics and who knows whatever else that you're going to have these conversations with. But you know what, Tim? You're getting guys from all different sorts of backgrounds melding into what will be a 53-man roster. That's just fine. I'm totally fine with that.
It's important to talk about uncomfortable stuff with people that you have to care about and work with. Like if you're not aligned, that's fine. But if you're not open about it, then you're already handicapping yourself to not succeed. If again, like there's two viewpoints really. It's either you're in or you're out. There's 53 guys on there with 53 different opinions.
Yeah.
You have to make it work the best of your abilities to build the camaraderie and the culture and the chemistry to succeed starts with a conversation. All you got to do is be able to be open and discuss things that aren't really that easy to talk about, especially if you know that, like, man, I don't disagree. I do not disagree, or I do not agree with anything that you stand for. It's like, okay, well, you stand for winning, right? You want to win football games with me? Let's move past this particular part of our lives and go win some games.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like, and who's calling the shots there? If you're a rookie and you show up, or you're a new veteran on the team, you're listening to Josh Allen. So if he's kind of cool with everything, you're gonna kind of take that cue. I said this. It was Frank who wrote in. I just hope with two Canadian teams, I'm going to guess you're going to get something in Boston, but I don't think it's going to be to the extent of what we experienced in Montreal Saturday night. Belleville comes to town Friday. Toronto comes to town Saturday. I'm talking about the Amherst. Tim, you were producing the game on Sunday. Amherst Laval, a lot of people went out. Good Kids Day game, 7,000. It didn't seem like everybody was turning the other cheek there. It seemed like you were saying they were booing the Canadian anthem.
Yeah, Saturday night, USA and Canada played their Four Nations game.
Yep.
The anthem was booed during that. On Sunday, the response here was booing the Canadian anthem. And there's Canadian guys on this Amherst roster, so you're kind of alienating. Like I get that the point was to respond to something that happened in Montreal the night before, but you're now putting that on guys that you're cheering for that are Canadian. It's like, why are you booing us? Why are you booing me?
Yeah, it's also one of those time and place. I think that if you're going to a kids' day game on a Sunday, you shouldn't be yelling F-bombs. You shouldn't anyways, but you get my point. Like, you got to know kind of like the setting there, and it's a different vibe for the Sunday family day at 3 o'clock as opposed to, say a Friday night game. They hardly play ever Saturday night games. It's not really a Saturday, 5:05 Saturday. Now, just judging by what happens down at RIT, Tim, I think you should get a good crowd Saturday because people in our town, hey, if you want to go out for a late dinner after that, you can. It's fantastic. Like, you get out at like 8 o'clock. I'm like, all right, let's go hit up this here on the way back.
I think that if the team keeps winning, they have not done they've done fine at home, but they have done much, much better on the road. If you can bring in a crowd to see a win, they're going to come back. And it could start tonight, and it could carry into this weekend. But the team is second in the league, second in the division, but also second in the league behind the team that they just lost to on Sunday. They're a good team.
They have the components, meaning, okay, Levi can be that guy. And if you go through your Rochester Americans history, every Calder Cup winner has had the dude in net, okay? Whether it was Jacques Cloutier, whether it was Darren Pupa. I mean, there's been some guys there. Steve Shields. Maybe they didn't become Hall of Famers like – Ryan Miller. But you get the idea. You always had Levi is the guy. You always had the veteran. Again, I'm dating myself, and if you're a long-time Hamrick fan, I say Yvonne Lambert. Oh, yeah, that was the 83 Cup team or 87 Cup team. Don Lever. Okay, he was a veteran that came back. Abe Cabral is not old, but he's got the cachet of having won a Stanley Cup. And he came down, he scored 2 goals in Cleveland last week. So, and then, of course, you get the stars here. And I'm looking at Isaac Rosén, who is just on a tear. Now, when we get to the postseason, we saw this, last year where, okay, some guys it's a different animal. You're not going to be able to skate freely and openly. But for now, though, he is as exciting as any player in the American Hockey League. And I'm hoping that the Sabres do the right thing when it comes to the Clear Day roster, make sure that the Amherst are loaded here this spring.
Yeah, the way that it works out this year, it looks like, he's earned a look in Buffalo, absolutely, but he's also earned the respect of the team here where he doesn't have to be in Buffalo to be successful. Like, he's successful here, and he will get his opportunity in Buffalo. Winning down here breeds winning up there, and we've won in Rochester a decent amount. Haven't really crossed that path of true victory in about 30 years, but right now, Rosén's putting up a season from a young player that hasn't really been seen here in a long time. It had to have been probably Pominville 20 years ago during that strike year, where a young guy was putting up monster numbers, or maybe Denny Hamel 30 years ago.
Like, gosh, those are some names,
right? Like,
Denny Hamel, yeah.
Like, we're getting goal totals out of a player. Like, he could legitimately push 40 goals, and veteran AHL guys, that happens every once in a while. A young guy isn't down here long enough for that to happen very often. And I think if Buffalo does it right, he can get to that number this year.
I think what they should do, Tim, is give him more of a look up in Buffalo, and then knowing that, hey, you're going to come back. Okay. 2 years ago, well, we can't send UPL back. He's earned it. Really? Based on what? Like, you should have had him here for look, the veteran they had at the time, Subban, was fine, but you should have given UPL what this experience would have been like. Anyways, I digress. Football. Cap going up, Tim.
A lot. Again.
$22 million. Yeah, this is the day where the NFL can just take kind of a victory lap and say, we make money, more money than, wow. Like, every year you set yourself a budget. Imagine that budget doesn't go up by 10% necessarily, but $22 million. That's just the player's share. Like, the owners are going to get more because the owners get 52%. Now there's operating costs and blah, blah, blah. But the question is here, how does it, like, if you're a Bills fan, you're like, yes, now we can go too. Well, every other team in this league, including Kansas City now, This just got, the secret winner today, Tim? It's the Cleveland Browns. Because the Cleveland Browns, well, that's what kind of complicates the Myles Garrett situation. It's not just the compensation that the Browns would be getting. It's the fact that you got to move that contract. And that contract at $25 million that you would probably have to kind of redo here, to make him the highest paid defensive player in the game. You're not trading for the contract and saying, we'll get to it when we get to it. Myles Garrett, to be clear, does not have a no-trade clause, okay? But he does have leverage in that situation. So I would think you would have those conversations. And for any team that wants to trade for Myles Garrett, well, the NFL is saying, here you go, $22 million.
Yeah, it opens the teams up. More suitors are now available to the Browns, but are they really a winner here? If they have to, if the piece moving is Myles Garrett, do they really actually get the win? They just get better offers from more teams, perhaps. But at the end of the day, they're still moving the best defensive player in football, and that's not a win to me. But if the package is improved now, and there are teams that weren't necessarily in just because they couldn't afford it, I'm listening. Obviously, I'm listening to everything, but I'm now listening to more. But I'm still not real keen on the departure of him in general.
The other NFL story today, and again, this is PR from the NFL, right? This is how they're going to control their storyline. And what they want us to talk about today is, wow, the Chargers are going to open the season in Brazil. Well, who's going to play the Chargers? Give us a call at 866-4FAN. Like, honestly, they know who the Chargers are going to play. They know who the Jets are going to play. The Browns are going to play. They know who the Steelers are going to play in Dublin and the Dolphins playing in Madrid. Did I miss one of them, Tim? I think I did. Colts in Berlin. Okay. They know all these opponents, but they're not going to tell you just now because you know what? We can win the news cycle next week too.
And they're going to kick that can down the line until I lose my damn mind. But, just feed it to me, I guess.
I feel like I'm taking a contrarian point of view because, hey, if the Bills end up playing one of these teams on the road, well, that's in overseas. That's a benefit. If you don't have to deal with the Steelers crowd or the Browns crowd, I'm like, this is a Bills team that has proven that they can go play on the road. And I'd rather play the Browns in Cleveland than the Browns in London because, to me, the travel is the great equalizer for all these games. The Bills laid an egg, and I'm sure they would do it differently the next time. Notice I'm not saying if. The next time. It's going to happen at some point. They have to go overseas. The next time it happens, I'm sure they'll do it different, but it was just so bad last time, Tim. Just such a flat performance by Buffalo. I know a lot of Bills fans would be like, oh, it would be great to go play a game in London. Sure. I'd like to go to London too or go to Dublin or any of these fun places. I don't need to send it around an NFL game, though.
Yeah, there's teams with noted home field advantages, Seattle being one, Buffalo also being one. I'm not worried about a Steelers or Browns crowd affecting my play. So, yeah, I agree with you in the sense that, it's a 20-minute flight to both of those places. Go do that rather than have to fly across country, have it knock you off your feet with jet lag and whatever else could go wrong.
You realize you just offended every Steeler fan out there by saying that their crowd doesn't have that advantage. So,
if they're angry at me for that, I mean, I'm a Browns fan, so are you really that serious as a Steelers fan that you think that you're affecting the other team to the point of victory?
Are you kidding me? Have you ever seen them show up with a towel and waving it around?
Yeah.
Like they fancy themselves.
Does it work?
Steeler fans.
Or have they convinced themselves that it works?
They're one of those franchises, Tim, that it's like the Grand Old Hotel that, it's really run down. Nobody kind of goes to it anymore. But the hotel doesn't realize that, but everybody else does.
Talking about Cadillac down the street?
No, I'm trying to think what, just kind of like everybody realizes it's a little tarnished. It's like Steeler football. Like you haven't been to a Super Bowl since 2010?
They get the job done as far as wins and losses every year, but they don't really ever get the job done. And you get to play the Browns twice a year, so.
It's a tough division, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But to me, the Steelers, now, what would be interesting, what they should do and what they will do, two different things. What they should do, Tim, is Okay, move some guys. Move a Watt, move this, move that. Put yourself in a position when they host the draft next year to go and draft your quarterback of the future. However, the Steelers thing would be, it worked well with Russell Wilson. We think it's going to work even better with Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh would be the juiciest thing that could happen because that means he's not going to Cleveland. And I've convinced myself that they're going to find a way to do that. So
I can't see Aaron Rodgers wanting to go. No offense.
I am not offended because I don't want it either. But
Yeah.
I think I've found myself down a rabbit hole so deep where everything sucks all the time that's what happens with Rodgers. Like just retire for me. Do it for me. Terrible take, Timmy. Just get out of here so I don't have to worry about you ruining my life any further.
It's tomorrow on the show. We'll talk to Dan Fates, 13-win Buffalo Plus, get his thoughts on the Bills, which, hey, now we're in February. We're talking a lot of things that normally we wouldn't hear, scheduling for the upcoming year and whatnot. Mike Leone was kind enough to reschedule from us since we were doing the Fisher basketball thing on Tuesday. Mike Leone, head coach of the Rochester Americans, joining us tomorrow. And to bring it back to hockey here, I think we got to ask him that question. Like, he's the head coach. I mean, he's certainly a U.S. guy, coached in Green Bay, played collegiate hockey here stateside. Like, going to the game, that's just you do what you want, but if it's me, I'm not booing the Canadian anthem. And I hope a lot of people will just kind of see it my way.
Yeah, I'm not booing the anthem. I just want Team USA to go out and
Kick
beat
their
their
butt.
ass. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Sign me up for I do think that it's going to be a gritty, low-scoring game, but if they can score early, and Bennington is a nutcase. Like, all goalies are crazy. He's the bad kind of crazy where, like, he can go off the rails in an instant. And like Dennis Bernstein said earlier, when it's time to play, he can play. But if they knock him off before he's even ready to go, they get 2 or 3 in on him early, and he just unravels. It might not be a competitive game, but it'll still be a damn good game.
Quite honestly, I was kind of surprised. I'm like, that's the best you got? Really?
Everybody, I was talking about this with a friend last week. Everybody around the age of the players now have spent 20, 25 years becoming the next Crosby, the next McDavid, the next McKinnon. Nobody wants to become the guy clowned by those guys. So there is no next Marty Brodeur. It's all just, they're all Crosbys and McDavids and McKinnons. And there's no guy willing to take that beating anymore.
Well, it's funny because when this was a conversation we had with Seth Apper when he was like, "Hey, how difficult was it to coach the U.S. under-18 team?" And it's like, well, all these guys think they're going to be the next Eichel, McKinnon, blah 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 blah. That's not how hockey is. You need guys that are going to hit and play defense and do all this other stuff. And guess what? You're not going to take the job from Jack Eichel. You're not going to take the job from Austin Matthews. You're just not good enough. You're going to have to find a different way.
Right. And the U.S. goaltending has been a strength for, probably before Ryan Miller. And you had Kevin Quick after that. And I'm blanking, the Stars goalie, Bishop.
Yeah, Jonathan Quick.
Goaltending has been incredible in the U.S. for as long as I've been alive. It has not been the case for Canada since Brodeur left.
We've got shots coming up here in the sports, but another hockey note, Danger, you're not Danger.
Sorry, you just read the screen.
I just read the screen. It says Mike Danger. It's actually Tim Schneider. We'll have this story here. Opening day, Yankees, Brewers. Who's calling this game?
I saw that.
Okay, this is interesting. Major uniform talk from hockey. We'll get to that as well. And, yes, why you shouldn't believe everything you see online. Why one of those videos you saw was completely fake. We will get into that story and more. We also will be having our conversation with Celeste Brown, the RIT women's hockey coach. Talk a little more puck later this hour. My name is Gene Battaglia, joined today by Terrible Take Timmy on the Fan Rochester. Hockey night tonight in the Flower City. It's a busy stretch for the Rochester Americans. 3 home games in 4 days. Cleveland is first up tonight, a team Rochester beat just last week. Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call tonight beginning at 7 here on the Sports Leader. Steve Tasker today on One Bills Live banging the drum for the Buffalo Bills to go get a defensive lineman.
Everybody knows a guy like Garrett, Crosby, Hendrickson, these other pass rushers that are at Khalil Mack in his day, man, they're game wreckers. So the Bills need one of those guys, and I think pretty badly. Sooner or later, they got to get a guy that can get after it up front, and they haven't gotten one yet.
The NFL salary cap to go up in the range of $22 million per team in the year 2025. Gene Battaglia, the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
From the field to the court to the rink, the Sports Leader is there. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, in the studio here for our, what do you call it, cheapo cable?
No, I call it a little more derogatory. Poor people cable.
Poor people cable. All right, so our poor people cable at least has ESPN on and the Around the Horn show, and I had to laugh at this. Like, it was a big topic. Oh, my gosh, did you see what they're going to unveil here coming up in spring training? Automated balls and strikes. What is this? And like, okay, if you went to a Red Wing game last summer, you kind of know what it is. Like, this is a big deal. Like, okay, they're going to test this out in the majors. You know why it's not a big deal, Tim? Because, well, surely there are players that have been up in the majors since they rolled this out. But how many guys in the minors actually kind of went through this and already know how this all kind of works?
A lot of this has already been tested, and I guess now it's just getting used to, like, the pitch clock stuff. Same thing. The first response was, how are we going to do it? The answer is probably not very well because people are getting hurt left and right. But the pitch clock thing is no longer an issue as far as gamesmanship. Now it's just healthy. The balls and strikes, I mean, how can you go wrong with getting the calls right?
We will have baseball this time tomorrow. It'll be the Cubs and Dodgers, not on our station. We're just going to be looking at it.
I'll be
describing.
Pretending to listening to you, and I'm going to be watching the Cubs.
You pretend to listen to me anyways.
Yeah.
But, the Yankee season opens up for real on March 27th. I still can't get my mind around that. March baseball, that counts. But the Yankees will open up home against the Brewers. The game is going to have a familiar voice on the broadcast. Joe Buck will be calling the game for ESPN. It's his first baseball game he's called since the 2021 World Series. Buck telling Andrew Marchand the fact that the Yankees on opening day, that was actually the appeal for him to accept this assignment.
It's pretty cool that he's coming back, but I don't know. Like, it's not going to be the same as Bob Costas leaving, but how long is he going to stick around for? Like, do we miss him? He's good.
Buck. Well, I think Joe Davis is okay, but Buck had that certain gravitas that if he floats in every once in a while, I'm kind of fine with it. Costas going away, and it got to be it was, what do they say, punching down. We were all punching down on Bob Costas. Like, we were playing clips, and this is where if Danger were here, we'd be pulling up the audio of Bob Costas. Oh, my gosh, you don't get paid by how many words you spit out per minute. It was just too much in the postseason to the point where, like, I'm sorry, like, your skills have eroded to the point where they're not going to ask you back.
Yeah, he will not be missed. He's a legend, no mistake about that. But he kind of lost a step on it, and it was time for him to go. Joe Buck still has it, but again, like you said, if it's every once in a while, hell yeah, that's good. It's fun. But if it's a permanent thing, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a man doing a job.
The plan for the NBA wasn't to return from the All-Star break tonight, but that's what's going to happen. The Wildfires from L.A. last month forced a rescheduled date. Charlotte playing at the Lakers tonight, which, Tim, you pointed out, that's a added layer there with the trade being negated. Also, Luka's off the minutes, so he's going to play whatever he wants to tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern. Tomorrow, there will be 9 games in the NBA, including the Knicks hosting Chicago.
Back in full swing after a disaster of an All-Star break. What could go wrong?
Yeah, and then also, if you're not really into the NBA and you thought our product was really bad, here, check out hockey, if you will. I ended up watching the SNL on Sunday. It was good.
I'm going to check it out. That's I started the movie, the Saturday Night Movie.
Oh,
I'm excited to watch that in full and then check out the special.
The other thing I've heard is good, too, is the history on the music. Or just they're focusing on all the acts over the years. And that's where, like, it kind of tied together. I'm like, of all the songs, why are they – oh, because Sinead O'Connor got kind of canceled back when for – she ripped up a picture of the Pope. Anyways, I digress. Ryan Kennedy. Who's Ryan Kennedy? He's a writer for the Hockey News, Tim. He is reporting that the NHL is considering a major uniform change, going back to white sweaters at home with colors to be on the road. Now, this was the norm. Well, that changed after the NHL lockout circa 2005. The report also says that there will be the possibility of having two teams wear both their colors. For example, Detroit in red, the Maple Leafs in blue. But this is not going to happen next week. The earliest this can happen is the 2006-2007 season, as it will be discussed in the next CBA agreement, which is up in 2006.
Seems like a no-brainer to me. Back in the day, I wanted to see the Amerks in blue just because I never got to. But now that that's like a normal and a constant, I want to see the other, like, seeing the other team in white all the time is boring. I want to see the other team, like the Hershey Bears in brown and the Laval Rocket in red and
that's
stuff like
kinda,
that.
That's kind of the appeal. When the Canadians come in, you want them wearing their colors and everything else. Now, the other thing, too, Tim, is like it's you and I kind of grew up here. There's a whole generation behind us that doesn't know it the other way.
Right.
Like my brain still can't calculate sometimes. I still think it's right when the Sabres do go reverse jersey wearing the whites at home, or the Amerks for the first part of the season wearing the whites at home.
Yeah, they just switch back. The AHL does both ways, and they do a flip at the All-Star break, and it just passed, so they're back to wearing the inverse. But in the NHL, I want to see the same thing. I want to see the teams like Nashville in their gold and Minnesota in their green, Montreal in their red. Every team coming in and wearing white does nothing for me.
No.
Yeah, okay.
No, you're not getting that brand awareness here. Yeah, it's cold here. Imagine going out and watching a soccer game in this cold, Tim. That's what's going to be happening tonight in Kansas City. This I don't know if this is on anywhere. It's a CONCACAF match between KC and Inter Miami. Lionel Messi is expected to play despite wind chills of up to, or more accurately down to, -11. The game was postponed for last night, but not for cold, but for snow. There's no snow in the forecast tonight, so according to FIFA rules, I don't know, temperature kind of gauge. It's a go. The record cold for an MLS game, by the way, stateside in Colorado was at 18 degrees. Well, this will shatter that tonight.
That is less than desirable circumstances if I'm going to be going as a fan. No way.
No way.
Like, I'm going to be cold even if I just threw up the stream somewhere. Like 18 degrees to watch somebody kick a ball around for an hour and a half. I think I'm all set on.
Well, it kind of also points out the fact that in our town, we all feel like we missed the boat on Major League Soccer. And I don't want to go down that road, the reasons why, but let me just kind of put this in your mind. Say you put the stadium in the ideal location and it was better than ever, right? We are a town that will support things when school is out.
Right.
Once September happens, we like our football and we get into a rhythm, and that's you think that we'd be supporting the Rochester Rhinos or wherever they'd be called into November or in March for that matter? I mean, we go out for opening day for the Red Wings because that's tradition and we love it, but it's kind of a tough sell until school kind of gets let out.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where, like, at first, if we get it, we're all in on it. It loses its luster a little bit, and the success of the team not being elite, I'm out on, like, it's a bummer that it didn't work out, but I'm not going to a game in February or March or November to sit in the cold and get nothing out of it. Like, if the team is not elite or the opponent doesn't have some marquee superstar player that I want to see one time before I die or whatever, I'm not going to that game.
Yeah, so I guess tonight is going to be just one of those. Well, they're wearing shorts and hypothermia and blah, blah, blah. Finally, don't believe everything you read online or see online. We know this, right? Well, the latest example, that fight between two former Major League pitchers, John Rocker and Patrick Mahomes Sr. in New Orleans, that wasn't real. That video you saw was completely staged. Mahomes Sr. had to admit as much as he was brought in, him just being there and fighting might have violated his probation. Well,
Yikes.
turns out Rocker and Mahomes Sr. signed a contract with Barstool Sports for a fight in April. That contract was signed on January 17th, and this was part of the let's stage this and kind of plan this out. It's not a good look for Barstool here or for Mahomes Sr. Mahomes Sr., according to the contract, want to take a guess how much he was going to be paid to fight John Rocker in a boxing match?
Not enough at this point, but probably up north of six figures.
$85,000.
No thanks, I'm out. That's silly.
There's something to be said that you want to be your own man and that your son is the greatest quarterback. Yes, Josh Allen is like, yeah, he's the greatest quarterback in the game today. He's won more championships, okay? But and they were talking about this on Maggie and Perloff a little bit today. Like Mahomes Jr. does all this despite his father having his issues. We'll leave it that. I mean, he's been popped for DWI. Despite his brother being creepy, like his family's kind of messed up too.
I'm very excited for the documentary 20 years down the line, like we got with Aaron Rodgers, where like his family alienated him. It took us 20 years into his career to realize why. And this is the opposite. It's like Pat Mahomes is like, man, I love my family, but stay away.
Okay, you got to fill me in because I only know half the story here. I didn't bother tuning into that. Why did Aaron Rodgers, divorce from his family there?
He's just a strange guy. I don't want to spoil if you haven't seen it, if you're not going to watch it.
Tim,
but
come on, spoil it.
He's always been his own bird, I guess is the nice way to say it. And he's got some theories, we'll say, that don't really align with reality.
Okay.
So the everybody around him was like, dude, you're kind of weird. And he's like, yeah, that's okay. And it is. But also, like, I'm not going to hang out with you if you're a weirdo.
Yeah.
Like a weirdo.
But you should never family first. That's kind of my thing. I can't imagine a world, Tim, where, okay, mom and dad, you're out. Like, wait a second. No, think your mom and dad. They brought you into this world. Like, that's just like the baseline for being a decent person. You may not agree with your parents, but they're your parents. You don't cut them out. You don't send back their Christmas presents. Anyways, I digress. We will make the transition coming up here and talk a little local college hockey. Talking with Celeste Brown, who I love Celeste. She is building that program, and it's going to be a fun atmosphere Saturday at the Gene Palestini Center. Playoff hockey. We'll talk a little women's hockey coming up next. 866-4FAN. Time for that on the other side here on the Sports Bar, the Fan Rochester.
Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
I feel like today's been kind of like an extended pregame show for the game tomorrow night, United States and Canada. One of the things that's going to make it tough for the U.S., it's going to be tough to beat Canada twice, right? You hear that in the NFL, right? If a team sweeps the division and, the series, it's really tough to beat a team 3 times in a year. Imagine having to beat a team 5 times in a season. That's the chore ahead for the RIT Tiger women's hockey team. For the first time on the show, we welcome in Celeste Brown. Playoff game, winner, one game take all playoff game coming on. Celeste, appreciate your time today. How are you?
Hey, Gene. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, winner takes all Saturday. We're getting excited, and you're spot on. Like USA and Canada's, they're putting on display first. So we'll be watching that game, and then we'll be getting on to ours.
Yeah, you're facing Lindenwood, 3 o'clock on Saturday, Gene Polisseni Center. And again, it was only a couple weekends ago. Are there any secrets between your two teams? I mean, like when you're doing the scouting, I mean, is there any concern that might actually be an equalizer in this game?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's going to be a dogfight, and to have just played them, 2 weeks ago, not even, there's not much to hide. It's really going to come down to who can play their best game on Saturday, and one game series like that. There's pressure on both teams to perform, and but I'm confident in our group. Our girls feel confident. Like you said earlier, we've beat them 4 out of 4 regular seasons, and so the way we view playoffs too is it's a start of a whole new season. So we're ready to go, and I mean it's going to be an exciting time.
What do you think of this format, Celeste? Because we live in an age where I think everything should just be kind of balanced, and if the men play, a best of 3, and we're doing a 1-game winner take all. I mean, I know we all love a Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, right? But would you rather see the quarterfinals be a best of 3 in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think our league is on the women's side going through some changes. So last year, not all teams made the playoffs, and this year, the first couple teams got byes, and then the rest advanced. So, best of 3, I think, provides some space, but it's also, playoff hockey is playoff hockey, and so our girls are expected to perform when they need to perform. Like once you get to the NCAA tournament, there's no best of 3 series. It's one and go. So it matches that format. But I think we'll see what that looks like next year when we add another team. But again, just focused on being our best self come Saturday.
Celeste Brown, RIT women's head coach, as Lindenwood 3 o'clock puck drop in that 1-game playoff coming up Saturday afternoon. What does it mean to you, Celeste? Because you've seen it at both ends. You as a player playing in the first ever home playoff game, but that was at the Ritter. Now you're the head coach, and this is the first ever playoff game. I can't even say the new arena, but for the women's program, what does it mean just kind of break the glass ceiling and get a home playoff game coming up Saturday?
Yeah, it's pretty special, and I feel excited for our girls knowing what playoff hockey at RIT is like, and what they're about to experience. Like, we have an unbelievable fan base, but all of this is possible because of the hard work of our players and their goals that they set for themselves early on in the season, and just that coming to reality. So it's pretty cool. I think too, we just, we've had an interesting journey since I got back here. And, again, my players have been just such great partners in that journey to, come into a program that needed some help and then get it to where it is today. And again, give us a chance to fight for our goals to come true here through the postseason.
Yeah, and let's hopefully get a great crowd here too. I would think that the corner crew, if you want to sit with them, Celeste, on Saturday, they more than would welcome the support coming up.
Oh my gosh, they would love it. They're one of a kind crew, and they have great signs and great chirps, and they're all over the other team. And if you're making it to the game for the first time, I highly recommend going over there. Maybe they'll let you grab that goalie stick and smack that box and make some noise. But I think it's going to be bumping this weekend with some alumni and people who are coming back. I've heard from some, and so the more the merrier. But definitely, if you got kids and whatnot coming, get over there.
Yeah, in Rochester, we have not one but two Division I programs, the RIT men and the RIT women. Playoff game for the women coming up Saturday, 3 o'clock at the Gene Policini Center. Celeste Brown has been our guest, RITtickets.com for the info. Celeste, thanks for the time, and we'll see you Saturday.
Thanks, Gene.
Appreciate
Go
it.
Tigers.
Go Tigers is Celeste Brown coming back there. And I always think that's a cool story when you coached at a school and you know kind of the culture there a little bit. And this was a team, Tim, that 4 years ago they had 2 wins. So like when you're starting from there and now you're hosting a playoff game, that's kind of exciting.
Starting from the very bottom, coming up from Division III, and then being able to do this in 2 grad cycles essentially, 8 years or so.
Well, they were they made the NCAA tournament in 2015. Okay. And that was under Scott McDonald, who's now, by the way, at Fisher. Scott McDonald leaves. The other guy, Chad Davis. This is me speaking, Gene, if anybody. Horrible coach. He just crashed the plane, did everything okay, we're moving on, but left the program so barren that, okay, we need somebody who bleeds Tiger orange, and that's Celeste. So hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that, but I got to tell you what I believe. So
you got to put it on your Twitter handle thing, things or whatever. I said this and not anybody else, and it's my belief, and I get to believe it.
It's my it's our show. I should say what's on my mind. Gosh. Sports Bar. Tomorrow on the show, guy who speaks his mind. Dan Fates, 13-win Buffalo Plus. We'll talk some Bills football. And Mike Leone. Amerks in action tonight. So, Tim, I'm sorry you don't get to go home as you will be producing Amerks hockey. Don and Andrew with the call tonight, 7 o'clock against those Cleveland Monsters. Appreciate you for listening today. Thank you to Dennis Bernstein. Thank you to Celeste Brown. Thank you to PJ Glasser. JR Sport Brief coming up at 6. Amerks hockey at 7. You're listening to Rochester's #1 sports station, The Fan, Rochester.